2017 school committee meeting. This meeting is being recorded by East Hampton Media. East Hampton Media channels 191, 192, and 193 is looking for volunteers. If anyone is interested in helping to tape city government meetings, please contact Kathy Lynch at 413-203-1360. Superintendent Follansbee, do you have some announcements for us?
Yes, I do. The next regular school committee meetings are May 23rd, June 13th, and June 27th. The East Hampton High School Arts Festival and Spring Concert is May 11th from 5 to 7 p.m. at East Hampton High School. And on Saturday, May 13th, at the Art Walk. And I believe the spring concert, the festival's from 5 to 7 maybe, and the concert's at 7, I believe. I think that may be the way it was from what I'd seen earlier. There's no school on Monday, May 29th, due to Memorial Day, and currently the last day of school is scheduled for Monday, June 26th, which is a half day of school for students. For community members or others who do not have children in our schools and want to receive the superintendent updates that are sent out weekly, please visit our website at www.epsd.us and click to subscribe under latest superintendent update. Thank you.
Thank you very much. Correspondence, Peter Gunn.
Great. We have received in the packet a letter from the Wilson Northampton School from the headmaster and the chief financial officer outlining in detail the impact of the Wilson Northampton School on the East Hampton community and specifically on the schools. We have also received a great deal of correspondence via email, and we encourage people to continue to communicate with us via email. That is all available in the East Hampton Public School District email file, but it was not received in time to be included in print form in the packet this evening. Gifts?
Gifts.
Yes. I move that we thank Mad Science of Western New England. That's a great name. Mad Science of Western New England for a donation of $100 towards science materials at Maple School. Nobody want to
Second. There's a motion. It's been seconded to accept the gift from Mad Science of Western New England for $100. All those in favor? Motion passes. Thank you very much. Okay, moving on the agenda. At this time, we'd like Tess McCollum, our student representative, to update us on activities happening at the high school.
So, as Ms. Follansbee mentioned, we're having the Arts Festival and Spring Concert May 11th.
Speak loudly.
Okay. There's as Ms. Follansbee mentioned, there's the Art Festival and Spring Concert on May 11th. Recently we had our junior-senior prom, and that was a great success. That was really fun. Besides that, there's not many after-school activities happening at our school because it's late in the year, but the next senior event should be the Senior Cruise, which is on May 25th.
Very good. Thank you very much. At this time, we're going to have a presentation by Samantha Garcia on our organization at the high school, the SAD organization, Students Against Destructive Decisions. So we'd like to call Samantha Garcia forward.
Hi.
Hi.
So Samantha brought two friends with her here. So I'm Nancy Dunn, the SAD advisor at the high school, and Samantha's just going to share with you a project that she's going to be doing in the community. And because Samantha doesn't like to give herself the credit she deserves for everything, I'm just going to do that for her, and then they're going to take over. But Samantha has attended, she applied for a SAD Speaks application last year and to be a SAD Speaks advocate. And out of a competitive process, she was selected in a national competition. And as being accepted in that, it involved a lot of her time where she had to do a online training, and then she traveled to Washington, D.C. to participate in a training around advocacy skills and public speaking and leadership skills. And at first Samantha couldn't go once they gave her approval, and she even changed her travel plans so that she could go and get this experience. It was a great experience for her, and in addition to being accepted there, Samantha has done a lot. She came in as a quiet freshman, and she's done a lot both in her community on the local level and done things on the national level as well. She's given workshops, she's been to national trainings. So she's here to share with you a campaign that they are going to be doing. And she's got a partner here in this, Sam. And so I just want to give them the recognition that they deserve, that Samantha deserves, in pulling this off. And Samantha is the type of person who has come, she has ideas and she follows through and let's do this, let's do that. And when a student does that, I'm more than willing to be able to step forward and help them make that come true. So that's what we've done in Samantha's case. And the project they're going to present to you, I do want you to know that it's being supported and financially supported by the Florence Savings Bank and by Fink and Paris.
So, hi, my name's Sam Collenbeck. I'm a sophomore at East Hampton High School, and I'm a part of Samantha's traffic safety campaign team. I'd like to share some research on distracted driving, which was a part of it that interests me. So, distracted driving is the activity that takes your eyes off the road, your hands off the wheel, and your mind off the primary task of driving safely, and potentially endangering other drivers, passengers, and bystander safety. So, distracted driving remains to be one of the most underreported issues involving traffic incidents because when someone is involved in a car crash that's their own fault from distracted driving, that's why a lot of the statistics and information from distracted driving isn't the real numbers and doesn't really show the effect of distracted driving. So 10% of all drivers 15 and 19 years old involved in a fatal crash reported distracted driving. And this age group is the largest portion of drivers who are like the area of distracted driving. So 5 seconds is the average time it takes to check your phone for a text or something like that and get your eyes off the road. And in this time, when traveling at 55 miles per hour, you can cover the length of a football field in your car. So traffic safety affects all of us, and it's important in youth and adults. A lot of times it's just the kids that are focused on, but it's everyone driving. Our goal in our traffic safety committee is to raise awareness around the issue and help influence all individuals to make good decisions. So Samantha's going to tell you more about the campaign. Thank you.
Good job, Sam. All right, so I'm Samantha Garcia, and I'm a senior at East Hampton High School. When I went to SAD Speaks, as Ms. Dunn was talking about, SAD Speaks stands for Students for Policy, Education, Advocacy, and Knowledge. And while I was in DC, I learned a lot through the National Traffic Board of Safety about distracted driving, drowsy driving, drug driving, and drunk driving. And so those are the 4 traffic safety areas that I'd like to focus on for the campaign that I want to do, or that we are doing. So we're going to do lawn signs across East Hampton towards our the end of May, which is the barbecue for East Hampton High School. And so one of the signs will be towards distracted driving, and it will say, "Stay alive, don't text and drive." And then for drugged driving, we have "Hits lead to hits, don't drive high." And then drunk driving, drive sober or get pulled over, which is a common thing that you see on boards on the highway. And then for drowsy driving, which a lot of people aren't really educated on and they don't realize how dangerous drowsy driving is, we have "You snooze, you lose, don't drive drowsy." And so those are the 4 areas that we're focusing on. And along with the lawn signs, we're going to do Snapchat filters. And I know a lot of people don't really know what Snapchat is, but a lot do. And when you're in East Hampton and you slide your Snapchat when you take a picture, it has a filter for just East Hampton. So each day we're going to do a different filter with the same slogans for the 4 topics. So yeah, that's my idea. Thank you.
And I'm just going to end by, the reason we're here tonight too is the lawn signs are being made, and we'd like to bring them to the next school committee meeting and have people who'd like to take them, and people who are here. So our next project is getting the lawn signs out to the public. And the one thing I failed to mention at the beginning too is this evening there was a 3-minute presentation where we were going to project a video. Samantha at her training spoke publicly at a congressional hearing. And that's not being projected tonight, but tomorrow morning I'm going to email it to each of the school committee members because we really would like all of you and Superintendent Follansbee to see her speaking at that congressional hearing. And she said there was a lot more people there than are here tonight. Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you very much, Samantha and Sam. We're very proud of you and the work you're doing. Okay, moving on. We originally had on the agenda a presentation that was going to take place from Mr. Benoit, our French teacher at the high school, regarding the foreign exchange program, but that's been postponed until a future meeting. So at this time, we're going to move on to the public speak portion of our meeting. And before I do that, I'd like to go over the ground rules for public speak with everyone. If you are coming forward, please state your name and where you're from, speak to the committee and not anyone else in the room. Please do not read anonymous letters or present information from anonymous sources. Please do not allude to information that you do not know to be personally true and factual. You must refrain from any remark that violates a student's right to privacy or an employee's right to due process. I will stop anyone from saying anything that would violate privacy laws. I'm going to ask that only residents of East Hampton speak at this time, unless you have a child in our schools. And if time allows, after everyone else has spoken, we will hear from non-residents. Please limit any comments to 2 minutes. We will be timing everyone this evening. If the timer goes off, we request that you wait until everyone else has had a chance to speak, and then you may come back through the line again and speak for another 2 minutes. Please be respectful of everyone coming to speak. I would like to remind everyone that to be tolerant is to be respectful of all points of view, not just those you agree with. We do not typically respond to or discuss matters that are brought to our attention during public speak time. However, all of the information that is shared will be carefully reviewed and considered. If you have information that you would like to share with the committee and you're not comfortable sharing that during public speak time, we encourage you to get in touch with any member of the committee. You are more than welcome to speak with any of us individually at any other time. With that said, I will invite anyone who would like to come up and speak to us to do so at this time.
Hi, my name is Carly, and I'm a junior at Carly Doney, and I'm a junior at East Hampton High School. I would like to talk about the recent events that have happened at our school. I want everyone to know that I don't feel as though it is the teacher's fault or Mr. Burke's fault. I think I've been very lucky to have a very good experience at my school, but I know that also that not everyone can have the same experience, but I want everyone to know that the teachers at my school are amazing and they have done everything that they can, I think, and I think they're trying their best. And I think that it more stems with kids, and I think we need to do more to educate children and teenagers on different things about racism and things like that, about how to more acknowledge just that people are different than you, because I feel like we haven't talked about that as much. And yeah, that's all I want to say.
Hi, my name is Linda Broadhurst, and I live on Lawler Drive in East Hampton. I'm reading this letter that my son wrote, Jacob. He's a junior at the high school, but he's working tonight, so he asked if I would read this for him. People at my school have been saying they don't feel safe because of the Confederate flag. Well, I don't feel safe, and a lot of people I know at school don't feel safe either. We are constantly getting dirty looks and threatened by people who supposedly stand for no hate, but they hate us. My friends and I have been screamed at several times. When we are just sharing our opinions, we are called racist and white supremacist and many other things that I'm not going to repeat because they are inappropriate. How can they think For those people that say they don't feel safe because of the Confederate flag, I want to know why. Why do they feel threatened by a kid wearing an article of clothing representing Southern pride and heritage? Why don't they feel welcome because a kid has a flag on his own truck? The answer is pretty simple. They don't know everything the flag represents and what some people use it for. I have read a ton of articles recently about people who fly a Confederate flag. A lot of these stories were incredibly touching. I would like to just share one with you really quick. This was written by the Washington Post, and it comes from a man living in South Carolina. This is what he said. I became a national news story after I hung a Confederate flag in my dorm room window at the University of South Carolina, Beaufort. Controversy wasn't my intention. For me and many Southerners, the flag celebrates my heritage and regional pride. One of my ancestors, Benjamin Thomas, was a black Confederate cook, and I do not want to turn my back on his service to the South, so I hang the flag in honor of his hard work and dedication during the Civil War. My Confederate flag isn't racist. After all, I am black. I am also an American who strongly believes in the constitutional right to free speech. I fought back against the university's demand that I take my flag down simply because others view it as a symbol of racism. I fought back against the racist interpretation of the flag, and I won. This man clearly believes in the Confederate flag as a symbol of his ancestors' hard work and dedication to the South. He had a right as an American to think that, just like you have a right to think it's hateful. But you don't have the right to try and force it to be banned just because you view it differently. If you ban this flag, you need to ban all flags and symbols in our school because there are people in school that are offended by rainbow, Black Lives Matter, and other symbols. So you just can't ban one when other people have the same reasoning to ban others. People also say it should be banned because it's disrupting the learning environment. The only thing that's disrupting the learning environment is the walkouts, the sit-ins, and the news being at our school trying to catch someone doing something. A parent said on Facebook that 99% of the kids agree with her and don't feel safe. I don't believe it is 99%, but if it were, they should feel very safe because that would mean there's only 1% causing these so-called racist acts. I, for one, don't want this anymore. People need to stop causing drama and let things be. Let things calm down and fix the issues as classmates and peers, not by spreading rumors everywhere and leaving school and not going to classes. We need to be together so we can listen to each other and not scream at people when they share their opinions. They say they want to listen, but yet we had a meeting and my friend said something they didn't agree with, so this kid jumped up, shouted some F-bombs and other swears at my friend, and he left the meeting. We have to find something that works for everyone, not just one side. Banning the Confederate flag will only help one side, and that isn't right. Let all kids express their feelings, and we will find a way to work through it equally. Thank you, Jacob.
Lisa Doney. I live on Cottage Street in East Hampton. And I didn't write anything down, so if I forget what I want to say. I agree with her about the news wholeheartedly. I mean, every time it seems like we've taken a step further to have meetings and you know, with parents and with children, we take a step backwards when it's in the news. It's very disrupting to school. It really hurts my heart because I love East Hampton High. I have not met a teacher there that has not been wonderful to Carly. And what I ask you is, just say this incident happened in your home. What would you do with your child? Would you go to the news? Would you go to Facebook? No, you handle it within your home and you teach your child that this is not the way to act. So this is what the school is trying to do. And when it's in the news, it hurts our community, it hurts the school, and it's not like I'm trying to quiet this. It's not quieting it and saying, oh, we're hiding something. That's not it. You need to let the school take care of things. And it's like to me, East Hampton High is almost a extension of my family, because the teachers, you know, when I can't be there, when my child is upset about something, they're right there to help her out. So this is my feeling. Thank you.
Let me make a suggestion if I can, just procedurally. If
don't-
I
does
can,
it stick?
yes, before you begin, just because I know some folks are inexperienced with public speaking, and just to facilitate this, I will try to hold up my hand when there's 30 seconds left, just in case what you plan to say.
Oh, yeah,
if you
I
want
have
to
a big
adjust
mouth.
it, right? If you want to adjust it so that we can stay as close to the 2 minutes as possible.
Okay, can I
Okay.
bring this down, or?
Yes, perfect. Thank you.
All right, my name is Cecile Molina, and I'm from East Hampton my whole life. An incident happened at the high school today with a freshman. He had a Confederate shirt on. The teacher told him to take it off, and he refused to. And so they sent him home. Now, what right do they have to do that? Is there anything in the school code, a dress code? I don't get it. I don't believe that should have happened. If there's a dress code, that's one thing, but I don't believe there is one as far as wearing a Confederate shirt. You know, my husband was from the South, and I'm very proud of what happened. You know, we did win. My sister married a black man in the 50s when that was not allowed. So I've been around with everything that's going on as far as racism. We're a League of Nations. There's 7 of us, and we're all married to different... I'm married to a Mexican. My brother's married to a Portuguese. What does that have to do with it? Because he's wearing a shirt. He's not offending anybody, really. We're not down south. You know, and I do have another thing. The children that are special needs, I don't believe are getting the education they should be. They're not. Because I have a grandson that is special needs. And I've asked them whenever anything goes on or he's not doing well to get a hold of me, and they have not. In the beginning I did, but then I broke my arm and I got sick and I didn't keep in touch like I should have. Okay.
30 seconds, keep going.
All right. So I hope I made my point. Please, please help these children. It happened at Whitebrook too. I had a big meeting there, same thing. He was not getting it. My step-grandson won a case against the school to go. The school, East Hampton, I believe, is paying $50,000 a year for him to go to Westfield because he wasn't getting the education he should here. I'm sorry, but I'm telling, this is the truth.
Thank you.
You're welcome.
I'm really inept at this. I'm the wrong person. There we go.
Good evening. My name is Mike Smiczynski. I'm from Campbell Drive in East Hampton, Massachusetts. And the thing that I would like to speak to tonight is this subject matter that we've all been speaking to the last few minutes, about the wearing of a Confederate flag. And what we're really talking about is the First Amendment. First Amendment is about freedom. It's not about censorship. When you have to have freedom, you have to have tolerance, and that's what we should be teaching. Instead of banning the flag, we're going to have to tell people, you know what, there's going to be things in this life that you're going to be offended by, and you're going to have to deal with it, especially if it's a political expression, if it's an expression about your feelings. I think that we're going about it the wrong way by saying, you're going to be suspended, you got to take that off. You know, we're going to bring criminal charges against you. Wrong way. Wrong lesson, hypocritical. Instead, we need to say, you're going to be offended. That's part of what happens in an open and democratic society. It's going to happen. You're going to have to deal with it. Because if you ban one thing, then somehow or other things are going to be banned. And then there is no First Amendment. The First Amendment is just words on a paper. They can't be just words on a paper. They have to be practiced. They have to be put into play. And that's what I think the school committee and the school administration and this town in general has to take that tact. Because if you don't, you're defeating yourself and you're not teaching these students the right way to be proper citizens. Thank you.
Get the last name. Do you know how to spell it? Perfect.
So there's another side to this. 3 young men of color. My name is Jared Collenbach, and I live in East Hampton. 3 young men of color threw 1 punch each and were charged with felonies. Can you tell me how many more students at your school, Mr. Burke, were charged with felonies for throwing punches? I would like to know that. These young men's lives have been disrupted for the last 2 months. And we're in here now talking about free speech. That's fine. And all of you were very good in what you said. You were eloquent, and I respected. Dan, you and I have coached for years. I respect you as a person. We are forgetting these 3 young men, what they have been through, for nothing more than the fact that they look different than many of us. And for some reason, that's not the topic. What are we doing, people? Are you kidding me? These boys deserve better. I have spent time in court with some of these boys trying to advocate. They threw 1 punch, and it is totally unacceptable that they threw that punch. And for that, charges, felonies. Are you kidding me? Why have we lost that? You're right. You do have a right to free speech. And maybe, just maybe, we can figure out a way. If you have to wear that flag, fine. I hate it, but I like Dan. We can separate those things. But we're not talking about the right thing, folks. These people do not deserve this. I know these boys personally. One of them has slept at my house many, many times. He's one of my son's best friends. And he's going through hell. I know we're trying to fix this, folks, but please, just advocate for these boys. I ask that, and I hope I speak on behalf of some of the people in this room. This is an important thing. Thank you.
Hi, my name is Peg Conniff. I live on Pine Hill Road. I'm also a city councilor. I am not a parent, and I do not have a child in the East Hampton school system. But I do care about this city, and I firmly believe that a strong school system is the engine that drives our city and our future. Right now, we have a problem. And our problem is not that a student wore a Confederate flag hoodie to school. Our problem is that we're afraid to take a stand and to show leadership. There have been so many moments over the past several months that cried out for more than citing rules and regulations, more than just following a script. And in my opinion, we missed the opportunity because we were silent. These are divisive times. Our country is divided politically, ideologically, religiously, culturally. We have become an us and a them society. We've become afraid of anyone or anything that is not like us, so we must oppress them, we must deport them, bully them, or physically hurt them. In East Hampton, we can do better than that. I actually believe that some people view the Confederate flag as just a flag with pretty colors and a cool design. I think you can find something better out there. Keep looking. I also believe that others simply and perhaps naively have convinced themselves that the flag is a sign of pride of the South. I used to live in Atlanta as a child. I remember Confederate flags as being everywhere. I never thought about it until I grew up and learned a thing or two about what they meant and what they symbolized. If views for them are a symbol of pride of the South, then you must understand that symbol is representative of a time when white supremacy and slavery were why the South was fighting so hard to secede from the Union. The Southern states wanted to maintain the freedom to own another human being as property. If you really understand the history, connecting the dots to understand why this might be offensive to some people who identify with being oppressed or marginalized in society today is not that difficult. Now layer onto the fact that we are being told every day in all kinds of ways that certain people or groups of people are better or more deserving or more entitled than other groups. If you aren't in the right group, expect to feel like you aren't good enough and expect to feel it every day and everywhere you go. As a gay woman, I see it. If I had to be taunted by someone wearing something that condemned the LGBTQ community day in and day out, I would feel less included, less than. But if you are not gay, maybe it doesn't bother you. Maybe you don't even see it. But I would see it, and I would be bothered. And it's simply not okay to do that to another person. It is your right to wear it. Of course it is. That's the foundation of this great country. But is it right that you wear it? That's up to each of us to decide. But if you wear it around me, I'm going to walk away. I'll be a little scared maybe, a little more than I was 5 minutes ago, but maybe I'll shake my head at your ignorance. Maybe I'll become angry, but I'll walk away because I can walk away. What if I'm 15 and I see it on a person sitting next to me in class? Maybe I'm a bit scared. Maybe I'm confused. Maybe I feel excluded or too different. Maybe I'm less likely to contribute in class for fear I may stand out. Maybe I will become a target. Maybe I will be bullied. So I say nothing and I hide. Schools to be. Is that how we want our kids to feel? This is about the Confederate, this is about a Confederate flag on a hoodie today. But it could be anything. Anything that says to a child, you are different and I don't like different. But we can do something about it and we can do better. I strongly encourage the school committee to have the leadership and show all students that they are safe in East Hampton schools, that we embrace their differences. We will protect you and we will not tolerate those who seek to make you feel inferior or less than. How we respond to this situation or any situation that marginalizes any of our children or our residents will speak volumes about who we are and what we value as a community. Who are you, East Hampton? I want to know. Thank you.
Before we proceed with public speak, I just want to acknowledge we have let 2 speakers go over the 2-minute limit on both sides of the issue, and it's really hard. We don't want to cut anybody off. We really want to hear what everybody has to say. But in the interest of sticking with our plan going forward to make sure we can hear everyone, we will from this point actually cut people off. So I hate to do that. It feels awful, but we're going to have to do that going forward. I just wanted to let you all know. Okay, thank you.
Hi, I'm Eamon Graham. I'm a senior at East Hampton High School and I live in East Hampton. Our previous speaker talked about the importance of education on a lot of these things. And I think that one thing that would really resolve and clear up a lot of the tensions about this issue is just education on things like the Confederate flag, education on things like the Pride flag, Black Lives Matter. I think that in our schools, last semester I took a class called Hot Topics, and we were really able to touch on a lot of these issues. And I think that if it was in our curriculum to learn about things like this, it would really benefit the students as a whole. It would allow us to make an educated decision on how we feel about these things. Someone who, I have a very blatant bias towards the LGBT community because I'm a part of it, and I feel like in our schools it's really important for us to educate both sides, especially with something as touchy as Confederate flag, as touchy as the Pride flag. And I feel like overall our education and the education of the future would really benefit from learning about all sides of the issue to make an educated decision on how they feel. Thank you.
My name is Sam Stauder. I live in Holyoke, about 17 years on Maple Street, and both my daughters went through the schools. And there's 2 points I want to make. One, the Confederate flag, let's be plain and simple, it's a symbol of racism, white supremacy, white power. It's not Southern pride, okay? Let's be clear on that. This is the Northeast. It's racist. You wear it, you're identifying as a racist person, plain and simple. Second thing is, our schools are not free areas where freedom of speech runs rampant and everything like that. Every kid is limited in what they can say. There's a disciplinary structure. They are not free to do what they want to do like adults outside of school. And that has to be taken into consideration. They are at school. They are forced to go there. They're forced to be there. They're not free to leave. So you cannot apply the same standards of behavior outside of school to being in school. The Confederate flag is racist, and those kids are forced to be under its influence there, and we need to change that.
Hi, my name is Jonathan Poirier. I live at 129 Parsons Street. I prepared a letter, but I will skip a bunch of it just to be brief. So this morning I listened briefly on the radio as our flag issue was debated, and among the ideas from the callers was that minority kids need to simply look away and get over it. So I found that to be a simple view from some who undoubtedly have no idea what these kids have to endure. But the sentiment that really got me, or got my attention, was that racism exists. So the earlier the minorities learn that lesson, the better. So I ask you, is that the lesson that our school system is trying to teach? Is that now part of our curriculum for our minority students? By allowing the continued display of the Confederate flag and the harassment that it brings to our students, I think you are in fact teaching them that lesson. And I find that shameful. So I urge you to please do the right thing and ban the Confederate flag from our schools. Thank you.
Angela Nardi, 12 Willow Circle. I think others have had similar ideas, but I just wanted to say it myself. Yes, we have the right to freedom of speech in public, but in public we also have the right to walk away from whatever is bothering us or offending us. And in the school setting, we don't have this freedom because if we leave, we'll be punished ourselves, or at the very least, we'll miss out on the educational opportunities that we're at school for. It's the whole point of school. And so a school setting is different, and I think it should be treated as so. That's it. Thank you.
Angela, are you a senior?
I am.
Thank you.
Hi, I'm Robert Mirapole on Plain Street in East Hampton. You may have to cut me off because I probably have about 3 minutes to read this, so I apologize. But I'll come back to finish.
Thank you.
I have no direct contact with the East Hampton High School, but as a longtime resident of East Hampton, I have a keen interest in what goes on there. First, I want to request that the charges against the 3 students be handled in an educational rather than a punitive manner. This committee does not have the power to drop the charges, but regardless of how the district attorney's office handles this, you have the power to act as educators and issue a public statement calling on all the students involved to receive counseling rather than court dates. This would help alleviate the perception that students of color are being unfairly targeted, and pretending that you are powerless when you are not will only validate the perception that you are racially insensitive. I have another concern as well. I'm sure the continuing racial turmoil at the high school is disturbing to you. It is your duty to address problems there before they get out of hand. The buck stops with you. The crisis, and it is a crisis, at the high school has happened on your watch, and you will be held, at least in part, responsible for it. I bet you feel this is unfair, because to the extent that you were not made aware, how could you do anything about it? This is why the Collaborative's investigation must focus not only on the students, but also on how the administration handled the situation. I've heard one unelected member of this committee emphasize that we can't change the past, so we must focus on making things better for the future. While that sounds good, it is not sound educationally. How can we correct past failures? And there is no doubt that some adults have failed our students if you don't understand their causes.
Thank you.
I'll come back.
I appreciate that. Thank you.
Good evening. My name is Jennifer Levi. I'm a resident of East Hampton. I have two children, ages 12 and 14, who have attended the public schools in East Hampton in the past but don't currently attend those schools. I did submit a comprehensive letter to the school committee tonight. I very much appreciate the comments of my neighbors earlier about the challenges that students are facing at the high school. I submitted my letter and I make my comments tonight to articulate the scope of the First Amendment protections that people have referred to. For very good reason, the schools are authorized to limit what it is that students have and what they wear in the schools to the extent that they create disruption or disorder in the schools. I don't think there's any question but that the fact of there being both violent interactions with students as well as walkouts, as well as reports that are confirmed by school records of complaints about harassment and racial bias in the schools, reflect the fact that there is disorder and disruption that has been created in the school this year. Courts throughout the country, at least 8 appellate decisions that I forwarded to the committee, confirm the exclusion of students from wearing Confederate flag imagery because of the racial history that it reflects and because of the message of bias and exclusion that it sends to other students. My neighbors have highlighted the reasons why. Schools are not an open forum. They're not like the public sphere. I said in my letter that I run whenever I get the chance down Park Street, and I love to see Mount Tom and the gliders soaring through the air. I'm also distressed to see a Confederate flag that waves in the backyard of one of my neighbors' houses. They have the right to do that, and I support that under the First Amendment. And I have a choice when I run to avoid that house. And if I wanted to, I could speak to that neighbor. Students in our community don't have those same choices, and that's why courts have supported schools that have taken the step to ensure the respect for diversity and inclusion, including excluding messages that create disruption and disorder. And that same limitation is reflected in East Hampton High School's dress code. I appreciate the school committee supporting that. Thank you.
Hi, my name is Noreen Nardi. I live at Willow Circle in East Hampton. First of all, I'm a big supporter of the First Amendment, and I do think that people should have the right to wave any flag that they believe in outside of school on their own property. But I think what's really important is to consider the intentions of why all of a sudden there's a flag waving in the parking lot and a student is wearing a shirt. That hasn't happened all year. It didn't happen or appear until the recent acts of racism began and light has been shown on them. If it represents their heritage or something they're proud in, why haven't they been wearing it all year long? And if they're wearing it for pride, why the student wearing the Confederate shirt, why did they try to taunt one of the boys who had been involved in the racial incidents? Why did they taunt him at lunch, an incident that was reported to administration, and the boy, the victim, still has not heard from anybody as to what happened and are you okay? And good job handling it and ignoring it. Again, that's not a public place. Kids cannot walk away. They cannot leave, so it should be treated differently. And the 3 boys that have been arrested and have felony charges, they were told early on in October to deal with it. And look where we are. We need to educate, not tell people to deal with it and look away. There is a dress code, by the way, and other shirts are banned with other language. Anything offensive can't be worn. If we allow something that offends someone else to be worn, can we wear gang symbols? Can we wear the Latin King's colors? Can we wear the SWAT sticker? We have to set rules for these kids. And we have advocated for all the children involved on both sides of these issues. Thank you.
Hi, my name is Shannon Dunham. I live on Bryan Ave, and I have a sophomore at EHS. Yesterday we were in the high school, and we were there to represent something that we believe in. There were 4 adults and also my daughter standing in the hallway, and 3 young men walked into the bathroom and said some comments that they were trying to taunt us. Okay. When they came out of the bathroom, they got very stiff, very loud and proud, and walked through our conversation. We're adults. If they're going to disrespect us like that, how are they treating their fellow classmates? It's unbelievable. I know some of these boys, their parents would be mortified that their children are disrespecting adults in that way. I am just baffled at how, had these boys originally been addressed in their fight for what they believe in, that wouldn't have happened yesterday. Thank you.
Some of you may know me, but if those who don't, my name is Matthew Zazula. I am a junior at East Hampton High. Well, what I would like to give to the committee is a petition that has been going around the school just for today that I have created to not allow our freedom of speech to be taken away just because of what people think. So there are 35 kids from East Hampton High that have signed this. And another point I would like to make is the bullying. One student has texted me today telling me to erase or cross out his name on the list because he was scared of what people would think of him. And people are getting bullied for their point of view, and that shouldn't happen. You know, that's their freedom of speech. If they want to fly a flag, they can fly a flag. If they want to wear a flag, if it's up to the dress code, they can wear the flag. It's their opinion. Everyone has one. So sometimes you just got to accept it. And I disagree with the banishment of the Confederate flag because it is my freedom of speech whether I want to fly it or not. So if the Confederate flag gets banned, then I think all the other flags in the school should be banned because all the other flags may or may not offend people. That's it. Thank you.
Hi, I'm Samantha Garcia, 28 Monsignor Drive, East Hampton. So first off, I just wanted to address how other people are saying that the flag means pride, like a pride for the southern states, to those who are wearing it. But I personally asked the kid who was wearing it what it meant to him, and there's a friend group of them, and one of them said, "Why does it matter to you? You're white." And first of all, it shouldn't matter if I'm white, and second of all, I'm actually half Puerto Rican. My dad's not white at all, so it offended me a lot. And second of all, I know he got 35 signatures, but I worked very hard to get Dr. Prone to come to our graduation. I had to get 105 out of 115 signatures for my class. So I think it should be more than 35 if you're going to take it into consideration.
Good evening, Peter Marks, Regula Drive. There's a lot of opinions going back and forth around, and do you like the flag, you don't like the flag, what does it mean? My only caution is like, as a parent with 3 kids in the district, is like on Friday I received an email saying like, it is a right of the students to wear the flag, we consulted with people, and then on Monday it was like, no, it's no longer freedom of speech. So I don't want to caution the school committee, like when you make a decision, like what is banned and what is not banned, just be really, really careful, because I think it's a slippery slope if we start banning certain things for certain people and say like, oh, there's a loud noise over here complaining, and we're doing it all of a sudden quickly. Like it happened on Friday, was okay. On Monday morning, some parents sat down and complained and did a sit-in, and all of a sudden we changed the rules. Said like, oh, okay, we're banning it until we can talk about it. So I just want to make sure we caution ourselves on this. I mean, there's a lot of things going on in the world, that people getting oppressed and people don't get the freedom of speech and everything. And one of the reasons I became an American is because I'm proud of our options that we have and the freedom of speech and our rights. So I just caution you to really, whatever decision you make, please really deliberate carefully. Thank you.
Good evening and thank you. Wayne Duchamp, Federal Street. Couple of remarks I'm going to say may go across as being harsh, but I'm going to try to make it quick. First of all, right now we're looking at a shirt or a jersey or a flag. Where do we cross the line? Where do we stop it? I made a comment to a couple of people this week, and although it may seem harsh, it is reality. Do we stop our German patriots and our German people from showing their flag? Because let's face it, the Germans killed millions and millions of people. Do we stop the Japanese from doing what they have to do? Japanese bombed Pearl Harbor. That has a big effect on us. Do we stop people from wearing a cross around their neck for the religion because it might affect a Muslim party? Right here tonight, we've already seen a division. We have a gentleman coming up and saying that I have 35 signatures. Thank God for the 35 signatures. Then we have a young lady that's brave enough to stand up and says, I don't think that's good enough because I had to get 105. We just had a battle develop here today. One against the other. And it's about signatures. When is this going to stop? My last point that I've been thinking about for a long time. We're here to educate the students of our school. Maybe it's not the students that need educating. Maybe it's the committee, the administration, and the teachers that need to go back to school and get re-educated. Thank you. Disgusting? That's what my view is all about. You didn't have to throw that. That's where the bottom goes right there.
Please, while we're here, let's.
I just came up and she called me disgusting.
I know.
That's what this whole thing is about.
I just want to remind folks of what the chair said before, which is that we want all of the remarks to come to us. So please save your remarks and have them come to us. Thank you.
Eamon, we have to see if anyone else
Okay.
is interested in speaking first before we come back to you again.
Okay.
So we'll have any first-time speakers.
Oh, great. There we go.
I'm Bill Newman, and I am the director of the ACLU of Massachusetts' Western Regional Law Office. At the risk of sounding a little bit like the flag of Switzerland, I'd like to say I actually agree with most of what's been said here tonight. I agree with what's been said about the racism of the Confederate flag. I agree that it can hurt people. And I agree with those who say it should not be banned under these circumstances. And I say that with appreciation for what Jen Levi has said and for the many good points she makes in her letter to you. I support, and we support, students' right to a quality and equal education without discrimination and without fear. And I think the students' complaints about racism need to be investigated and need to be taken seriously and need to be addressed. I also believe that you are being asked to embark on a very slippery slope here tonight. If there are Armenian students in your school and on Armenian Heritage Day, are you going to ban the Turkish flag? Because that's a deeply offensive symbol of genocide. Are you going to ban the flag on a t-shirt? Because that could be deeply offensive to Jewish students. Are you going to ban the Israeli flag because that could interfere with the feelings of Palestinian students? Are you going to ban a picture of Donald Trump that says, support the Muslim ban? I don't think so. But are you going to allow this T-shirt that says no Muslim ban? There is a deep, deep and important question for you to consider about being in the majority. Because I think probably a majority of people say, okay, what the heck, it's just the Confederate flag, let's get rid of that one. But this is a issue that won't go away over one flag. And I bring to your attention this final point, that one of the more recent cases that we were dealing with in terms of a school system banning images on T-shirts was a high school that banned images of Michael Brown and Eric Garner. I suspect you think that would be wrong, but the claim, of course, was it was disruptive. My final point, if I might, the disruption, of course, cannot be made intentionally, otherwise you are enshrining a heckler's veto. Anyone comes and say, that's disturbing, I'm here to cause disruption. That can't be the basis on which you do this. Thank you.
Good evening. My name is Cindy Mojica, and I live at 14 Clark Avenue. I'm here because I see a lot of white. And as you all know, I'm Puerto Rican. I have a daughter, a freshman in high school. I do believe in freedom of speech. There's nothing wrong with that at all. There's nothing wrong with that. But it's wrong when my 14-year-old look at a flag and she know what it means. Because I know what it means. I know the history of it. I have to take a whole course in the college about it. And she knows that in history, 179,000 black men died defending the South and being free and being able to actually eat what they want, go to the bathroom when they want it. You know, that's something too that they should teach the kids. Can they wear the flag? I don't see a problem, it doesn't bother me. Is he wearing it because he knows and he's proud of his heritage? Does he know the meaning of that flag? Has somebody asked him, like, why are you wearing it? Or has somebody tell him, you know, these offended black people because thousands of them die. I serve the community in East Hampton. I know most of you here. I know him. I know most of the kids that stand up here and talk. I'm all the time on the snack shack. All of the time. Most of the little kids know me. And are you going to treat me different now that you know that I'm Puerto Rican? You know, my thing is like, I don't offend anybody and I respect everybody. And I like to be treated the same way that I treat people. I don't yell at people. I don't really conflicted at anybody, but I'm afraid for my 14-year-old that attend high school. And that's the truth. I'm a parent before anything. And if my girl get hurt or bullied or whatever it is, I know she has she's really prepared to defend herself because I sit down with her and I explain to her. She knows her heritage. And I know the gentleman right here expressed about other countries and how they take in and stuff like that. Well, I would like to add that in Puerto Rico, we wear our flag very proudly. And you know why? Because it was taken from us. 3,000 innocent women and men were killed by the U.S. force. And that's why we wear our flag, and we're proud of it. But I know my history. I know where I come from. and I try to learn about the United States history. So when my girl has to say something and give an opinion, she knows what it is.
Thank
And
you.
I know what I am.
Thank you, Cindy.
So,
Thank you, Cindy.
thank you.
Thank you.
Hello, my name is Erin Zazula. I am the parent of a junior at East Hampton High School. What I hear a lot of tonight is talk about rights, who has a right to what, who offends who by saying what. There's name calling, whiny liberal, racist hick. It's all over the place. What I don't hear is listening. I don't hear it from either side. I don't believe, I strongly disagree that both sides have been heard in this situation. I believe that students who are expressing their opinion in a particular way are immediately labeled. Nobody's asked, why do you have that flag? I know a student said that she asked the student who wore the sweatshirt. Who asked in a sit-down, calm manner, why do you have that flag? Why do you have pride in that flag? Who on the other side, if we're talking sides, said, why do you like that flag? And then on that side, why do you not like that flag? We need to have students listen. They need to be in a setting that is calm, not all pumped up with the media and this and that and the sides and the clicks. It needs to be a calm environment. I don't know how to do that, but that's what's needed here. I don't believe that people in this room truly know how to listen. In fact, I think half the people in this room are probably figuring out what they're going to say next rather than hearing what I have to say. They're probably thinking what their argument is against my opinion, which was illustrated here tonight when students came up and other students said it wasn't enough. People need to listen. I encourage you, when you try to make this decision, that you truly value listening, truly value education. Take a look at the work that has already been laid out and take value in that. Thank you for your time.
Thank you.
Anyone else? Eamon?
I don't know if I should reintroduce myself, but I'm Eamon Graham. I'm a senior. I really would like to point out that within our educational school system, I've taken many of history classes. I really enjoy it. And classes I've taken with Miss Brown, Mr. Orn, I have been educated on these issues. And like I said previously, I think it is super important for us to form an opinion on this issue before educating ourselves. Everybody has their right to their own opinion. Me personally, I understand why people could be offended by the pride flag. The pride flag to me means something to different people, and I understand that. The Confederate flag can mean something completely different to me than somebody else. And I think that for a true decision to be made, like Mrs. Zazula said, we need to take into account both sides, because me being here today, have learned a lot about the other side and learned more about my side. And I feel like that to make the true educated decision, we really need to, come together. And I know it's extremely hard to. I do Model UN at my school, and coming to a decision on something like this monumental is really hard to do. And I think that with any issue, I think the focus groups especially did help, but I think there's still more we can do. But like I said, I think it needs to start with not only the education of our students, the education of our future. I think that before you form an opinion, you need to do the research yourself on both sides. And that's something I'm guilty of not doing. And I'm disappointed that I didn't do. But I think it's important for all of us to do. Thank you.
Me, Ross, 28 Oliver Street, East Hampton, 5 years. I wasn't planning on speaking. I was at the high school yesterday because I showed up because kids are scared. And the fact that this shiza has been going on for months is an issue to me, because it has gotten to a point that kids don't feel safe. And the kids, what I heard yesterday when I asked, was that they're not allowed to talk to each other and they're not allowed to be heard. That there was a lot of talking over them, over and over and over. Adults are talking at them, to them, and they are not getting to speak. And so I was there for the kids and asked them what's going on for them, and they're feeling harassed. They're not feeling listened to. They're feeling bullied. And they also, I believe, have not had the chance to sit down across from each other, the 35 or more kids, and have some discussion about what it means. Because the flag, to me, the Confederate flag, means black bodies swaying in the trees. The swastika, to me, would make me run away. And I'm a Jew, and I don't associate to it. But I associate to it when somebody says, yeah, I know what it means. It means German pride. No, my neighbor down the street has a German flag. I'm okay with that. Or a Japanese flag, you know. But this flag means something, and it means a lot of oppression, and that's real. And to disregard that, I think, is a fault of the teachers and the administration for letting it get to this point. There are so many incidences that have been written down and brought to the administration that have been disregarded and tucked under the rug, and these kids have not had their issues addressed, that it's come to this point. I'm ashamed of the administration here. I don't have a child here, but I stand up here for the kids. We need to do better by our future.
Again, I'll finish what I was saying. Robert Mirapol from Plain Street. Talking about adult responsibilities. As elected members of this committee, you must come to grips with those adult failures in order to effectively carry out the responsibilities of your office. The problem at the high school has been brewing for the entire school year, perhaps longer. To fix it, you need an unbroken chain of communication. In this case, it began with student complaints. This committee should have been at the other end of that chain, but somewhere its links were severed. You need to know how and why that happened, because if you fail to deal with this, you'll make it more likely to happen again. If you were blindsided, it is your job to find out why. I can understand why whomever failed to inform you would not want to dwell on this, just as I understand why you feel it is unfair to be held responsible for things you know nothing about. But now the ball's in your court, so lack of knowledge will not cut it next time. In closing, the community page of East Hampton's official website contains the following description of our city. I'm quoting, "East Hampton is a model small city of the 21st century. By adapting, evolving, and making tough choices, East Hampton is sustainable, inclusive, balanced, and a great place to live." The gauntlet has been laid down. It is this committee's turn to make those tough choices. This is not just about the kids. This can't be papered over. This is your chance to demonstrate that those key words, making tough choices, on our city's website are not empty. We are watching, and we crave your leadership. For the good of our city, I hope you will do the right thing.
I would just like to add that after being here tonight, I think that I've had a lot more information about both sides, as someone else said. I have
done a little bit of research on the Confederate flag, but not too extensive. Last year when I was in English, we did a project on the KKK, and we had to talk about the origin of the Confederate flag and how it didn't at first mean racism. It was at first used for the Confederacy, but then after that it started to be used. Once the KKK came up, it started to be used for that. And so for that reason, I feel as though it isn't something that should be widespread. I feel like, I mean, I understand the other side of it. I love the pride flag. I wouldn't want that to be taken away from me. I would never want to have to, I know Pride was just this weekend, and I would never want to have someone say you can't or anything, so I understand that point of it, but also at the same time, the pride flag I don't feel has negative connotations. I don't feel as though there's anything negative attached to the pride flag because it's all about love and everything, and the Confederate flag just doesn't have the same things. I know that some people use it as a way of Southern pride, but that isn't necessarily what it means. And I don't blame people. I understand that some people use it for different reasons. And I do agree with what Mrs. Zazula said about listening. I think that it is extremely important to listen to each other. And I completely agree. I think that we should try to I don't think there should be bullying. I don't think there should be bullying at all on either side. I think that people who support the Confederate flag, since it's a political thing, I don't think anyone should be bullied for their political beliefs. But also, I don't know, it's a hard subject, but I don't think that the Confederate flag should be allowed.
Anyone else?
Hello, I am Chintzia Pica-Smith, and I live at 54 Ward Avenue in East Hampton. Chintzia Pica-Smith, I live at 54 Ward Avenue in East Hampton. And I wasn't going to speak, but I would just like to say a couple of things. First and foremost, I'm a professor of education, and I teach a course specifically called Diversity in Schools. And what I am mostly interested in is that our young people are supported and are thought of in a way that supports their development, their emotional development, their psychological development, and their cognitive development. And I want to say that I've been very impressed by many of the students of East Hampton High School, many of them who have spoken today. And I think that you are showing the adults in the room what to do here. I am disappointed when adults discourage young people to organize. I am disappointed when adults tell young people to go back to class as opposed to fighting for social change. Nothing ever happens without youth leadership. Nothing of importance has happened without youth leadership. We'd all be doing the same thing over and over again. So thank you to the young people that have vision, that have courage, and that are sort of leading this conversation. None of these conversations would be happening without your walkouts and without your thinking. And then I'd like to echo some of my neighbors who asked you, who charged you with supporting the students who have been charged and who now see themselves on a path not to college, not to employment, but a path to the criminal justice system. Ruined lives, right? We have become part of the school to prison pipeline, and I could not be more disappointed in that, in taking part of that process. I would like us to think a little bit about opportunities for young people, and as my neighbors have talked about, like what happens for some people who get into a simple schoolyard fight, and what happens to others, right, who are criminalized and punished for the rest of their lives, right? And we need to show leadership on these issues. So please do what you can to influence that process. I know, obviously, you know, you have nothing to do with dropping the charges, but you're people of influence, right? So please use your leadership. Thank you.
Again, my name is Mike Smachinsky. I'm on Campbell Drive here in East Hampton. I'm going to say the most unpopular thing that you've heard tonight. And that's simply this. We just heard about the 3 students that are being charged criminally. That was 3 on 1. That is not a dialogue. That is bullying. That's where you can kill somebody. That is criminal behavior. I'm a lawyer. I practiced criminal law. I was on both sides. I was a prosecutor. I was a defense counsel. You know? And that's serious stuff. And to say that we're ruining their lives, well, you know what? They're not little children. They're a lot closer to being adults. And they have to learn to think. And they have to learn to control their behavior. And in my opinion, are criminal charges justified here? Absolutely. Thank you.
Anyone else?
I would prefer that not be the last word. All due respect, sir, and you know far more than I do about the law, and I know I'm not allowed to address you, but they each threw one punch, and I will say it again. Tell me either one of 2 things. 1, no other punches have been thrown in this school ever, or 2, show me the list of other young people, minors or adults, who've been charged with felonies. Show it to me.
Oh, thank you for that. I'm pretty good at this. So I'm not quite sure how to handle this. I didn't want to speak. I'm so glad everyone's speaking. Natalie Poirier, 129 Parsons Street. Sorry. But I have a situation I don't know how to handle, because there's a boy who wants to be able to speak for himself, but he can't because he had to leave the building because he can't be more than 100 yards away. And so he doesn't have a mom or a dad to speak for him. He has East Hampton teachers who saved his life, basically. And he has his community members who have done great things for him. And I know that because I love him. He's like a child of my own. And a lot of the kids that are battling right now, like what I've heard, because I don't know all of them, I'd love to meet them. I've been saying that numerous times. But I know most of them. I heard that they used to play together when they were little. I heard about their birthday parties. I heard about all this stuff. So there's a boy outside who's isolated because of his color. He's struggling. He's misunderstood. He's wanted to fight for his country, and now he can't. He told me that East Hampton teacher saved his life from being left alone in a shelter because his mother was a drug addict. And he came here in 8th grade really, really angry. And he told me that the reason he doesn't have to be angry anymore is because the one teacher he kept being so mean to kept being nicer and nicer and nicer to him. I want to say this. East Hampton teachers are awesome. I love them. I've worked with them. I support them. I will fight for them every single step of the way. I respect Mr. Burke. Mr. Burke got put into a situation he was not quite ready for. I'm sorry, and we're going to try to help figure this out. But what I want to say is I don't know what to tell this boy, and I need some help. He's outside. What do we do?
Why can't he come in?
Because he can't be, I don't know PJ Shadle, but apparently I'm sorry to call you out. He can't be, he left because PJ came. So I don't know if there's an officer here that can help me. No, I don't know what to do is what I'm saying.
Well, you don't need to mention anybody's name.
Here.
You know,
I'm sorry. Well, we're all here looking at each other. I'm sorry.
Yeah, no,
I need help. I am sorry, actually.
Everybody in the room knows the people involved.
I'm really sorry, and but we're adults, we can do it. So do I just tell them no? That's what I'm saying is I don't know.
They each have a right to be here, though, that's the thing.
But
I don't know how you would phrase that.
and he
Folks,
saw something.
I apologize, Ms. Poirier, just
That's
so
okay.
that
I'm
we
just
can.
gonna go, but I just
No,
am saying.
no, I just want to be sure that everyone understands that, and I apologize that I'm not a master of this technology, so
okay.
bear with me for 5 seconds while I get this thing
And I'm sorry they're
to
angry I'm
stop.
not doing this.
But we really
now.
do need to be mindful of what the chair expressed at the outset. We're not a body that can adjudicate the behavior of students, nor sit in public evaluation of the conduct of teachers or administrators. It's really out of bounds for us to come anywhere near either of those things. So please, as hard as it is to resist the temptation to start to get into that conversation, we have to pull back, stay focused on the policy questions that are before us and the concerns that people have. I know how hard it is. Please do your best. Thank you.
Just a point of information, if I may.
I just told you to stay out.
Are you saying that someone would like to address this committee, but cannot because they're not allowed to come into the room?
Because there's a restraining order for his distance.
There's a restraining
from one
order.
of the
Is
kids.
it possible to use technology in some way to have that person call you on the phone? And if they have something to say to be said through the microphone, is that violated?
Natalie, I'll go down.
Why can't he be here? Why can't they both?
Okay.
Apparently a court order has ordered that the person. Excuse me, I don't want to interrupt.
Right.
Sorry,
I
I
just-
just wanted to be sure that everyone has a chance to speak before you.
Yeah, and I
if there
think
is
we-
someone, I think everyone has a right to speak, and we all have the right and the responsibility to listen. If technology can help us, then that person should be heard.
JP, will you also identify yourself?
I'm J.P. Kwasinski, a city councilor here in East Hampton.
Thank you.
Hi, Linda Broadhurst again, 12 Lawler Drive. I just want to say, because I know it's getting very heated between what took place that day, and I'm sorry, Mr. Callenbach, because I like you, I like your family, I like your boys, but there was more than one punch thrown. It's on video, it's out there. I will show it to you if you need to, so I wish you would stop saying there was only one. I feel bad that it happened. I only know one of the boys.
We
No, I am.
I know we
really.
can't do this. I apologize for
Okay.
interrupting again.
But when
We
someone comes up
simply-
screaming,
we
I'm-
cannot, and I know whoever has the last statement is going to, other people in the room will feel disadvantaged by that and want to redress the record. It's just so important for the young people involved. The one thing that seems clear for everybody in the room is that they have the best interest of the young people at heart, and however well-intended our desire is to discuss some of these questions on the mic and as part of the public record, it's just not, it is not going to serve any of them well. No matter how much we might think so in the moment, it will not serve these young people well to be airing our interpretation of their behavior in this forum. So we just have to, stop doing that. And I think we're just going to ask folks to stop speaking if they start doing that. And I just want to be clear, because we do want to hear what people in the community have to say.
Okay. The only other thing I will say is, kind of mentioned it when I read my sons, that this bullying, racism, everything, there are two sides, and he's getting comments. He has people that don't talk to him anymore because he didn't support the walkout. I mean, he goes through a lot of stuff too. He's on the other side. He's not a minority. He's a white boy. And he gets bullied and he gets called names. And people don't ask him for opinions. They don't like who he likes or who he supports. So he gets sworn at. He's
I apologize.
That's okay. He's been called names and stuff. And one thing I urge parents is also that you want to change things. You want things, they can't be perfect. You can't follow your child the rest of their lives. You can't go to college with them and tell them, you know, you offended my son with that shirt. I don't think the college should allow it. You have to understand, we have to teach our children too what to do in situations like that. Obviously, if they're being threatened or being hurt, you need to do something. But because people have different opinions, teach your children. You just have to turn the other way or tell them how you feel. You know, don't be disrespectful to one another. Just learn to deal that everybody has differences, and you can't change that. You can't change the world.
Good evening. I'm Laurie Garcia. I did not expect to get up here tonight, but I've been listening quietly. Sometimes it's hard for me to be quiet. I've been a teacher for 26 years. I haven't had the pleasure of teaching in the East Hampton Public Schools, but I did teach at Williston for many years, and I was the International Student Coordinator. I made the choice to go back to teaching in public schools because I want to reach a wide variety of children, of economic status, of race, different degrees of privilege. And what I teach my students, hopefully every day, is to respect each other. I expect them to respect me, and I want them to respect each other. I've heard a lot of disrespect tonight among the adults. It's hard as an educator to be able to teach our children to do the right thing if we are not doing the right thing as adults. It's very different to sit in a classroom and see different flags represented from different nationalities that don't represent hate. I'm very proud to have a pride flag on my desk where students can see it. But I would not be able to teach and concentrate if I had a student sitting before me wearing the Confederate flag, because it represents disrespect and hate. So I just want you to think about what I said initially, that we must respect each other and teach our children and teach our students to do the same. Thank you.
I'm Nick Boyer. I'm from East Hampton High School, and I live in 4 Coldoff Street, Apartment J. I want to start off by saying I am ashamed to live in a town that when I was growing up, I thought to be completely fine with really any race, any ideas that were brought up to people. I'm ashamed to see now that that is pretty much in jeopardy. I do not support the Confederate flag at all. And I'm related to the person who wore the Confederate jacket, or whatever it was, to school. I'm definitely going to talk to him to see why he thinks and why he wore that. So, again, I am ashamed to live in a town that has well, I mean, it's not necessarily a thing that's uncommon, but to be in a town that has disgustingly racist people in this town. Thank you.
Jennifer Carney Polonis, 28 Buyer Drive, East Hampton. I'd like to read a statement from the young man who is not allowed to be in the room. In a perfect world, the actions of my own could have been dealt with differently, but I cannot change the past. But I cannot accept someone that hates me for the color of my skin. It doesn't matter if I am black or if I am Dominican, Muslim, Asian, or half white. I can feel your hate every day. Dirty looks can hit you hard. I am not you, but this is what I see you as. You are like a bat and afraid to come to the light and express your actual opinion when confronted. Then laugh with their friends while you all think no one is watching, and we are watching. In different towns and states, this could have been handled differently. No press, no media, just a school that suspends both parties and hearing both sides of the story. Not just giving someone's son the best way out of this mess. I now have to be careful with what I say so I don't affect my future even more, because I get nothing handed to me. I don't have a dad that can get me out of trouble. But I know deep down you are hurting inside, and maybe I can help you. I do feel really bad for you. I am deeply sorry that you were not raised to respect a different race. I am sorry that you were not raised to love and respect the person next to you. And I am sorry that you have no respect for women. Everyone is raised differently and are able to have their own opinions as they become young adults. But we were on the same football team. I've talked to you. I've shown you nothing but respect before all of this. I tried to push you to work hard at practice. You probably say I'm lying. But I was the only one that never made fun of you when everyone else did. And I hope that you know that. Everyone and everything is different outside of East Hampton. You don't see it, but I've seen a lot, been through a lot, and I'm still here today trying to move forward with you, trying to break bread with you. Maybe one day I can take you to lunch, explain my life, tell you what I've been through, and you can possibly tell me about your life. Because I know we all have some problems. I never wanted to be your enemy, but this is what it has come to. You've disrespected me and my friends, my family, and my life. I can't change the world, but maybe I can change your perspective on us, the minorities. I have to say also, I know this young man. He's a very close friend of my own son. He's a wonderful kid who has come through some absolute adversity, and I have never been treated with anything but utter respect by this young man. Thank you.
George Uramian, Main Street, East Hampton. I just want to say that the way the Confederate flag seems to be being worn and flown off of the back of pickup trucks and it's just an intimidation trigger, it feels. And it is intimidating for a lot of people when they see this going on and have to deal with it and be around it. I don't believe that the rainbow flag initiates the same trigger that the Confederate flag does. So I just don't believe that it should be worn in the school.
Again, J.P. Kwasinski, City Councilor here in East Hampton. I truly hope that everyone listens as best they can to everyone in the room, regardless of where you think you stand today. When we look at the history of our flag, when we look at the history of the Confederate flag, I can't help but think that no one in this room stands for lynchings. No one in this room stands for slavery. I would hate to think that those are the symbols that we would embrace, any of us. I would hate to think that any of us would embrace the symbols of Nazism and the Jews that were discriminated against. 6 million lives. And yet we want to be respectful of everyone's right to speak, to have freedom of speech. Because that's truly how we learn from one another, how we become stronger as a community. Whatever you decide, however you decide this issue, be mindful of and respectful that everyone goes away knowing they have a place to speak about what's on their mind. If they're not allowed to wear symbols, whether that symbol be gay pride or a rebel flag, because I would hate to think that any of us would advocate taking away those symbols from outside of our schools, in our community. And that we would truly always come and talk to one another.
Okay, at going to ask, does anyone have anything new to add to the conversation that hasn't been said before? Going forward, I'd just like to focus on anything new to add to the conversation. Okay. Public speak. Oh, I'm sorry. Go ahead.
It doesn't really have to do with the flag, but I'm very concerned with what I've seen tonight. I'm concerned about safety of school. I haven't been before, but I see the parents. One person gets up here and someone else says something mean, and it's very heated. And I'm worried about that because children learn what they're living at home, and there's probably going to be a lot of problems in the school. And I don't have to elaborate and say what has happened in other schools, really bad things. So that is a concern of mine now after sitting here and seeing that parents can't even come together. And a lot of them say that they're coming together for both sides, but they really aren't. These kids need our help. The ones that fought, the ones that put the stuff on social media, they need counseling. They need us to stand up for both of them, not to be separated.
Good evening. Sorry for adding to the already lengthy conversation. My name is Wendy Blumenthal. I'm at 11 Karen Circle in East Hampton, and I don't care to or need to repeat. There's been a lot of wonderful conversations on both sides. First of all, I want to apologize to the gentleman in flannel shirt. My comment was not directed at you personally. It was a very heated reaction to the argument you made, but it wasn't about you as a person. I'm sure we probably have much more similarities than we do differences. Secondly, I would ask you as a committee, because I'm guessing, I hope with all my heart, that this is the beginning of many conversations, because I think we have a big job in front of us as a community. And I think there's going to be many of these conversations going forward, I hope, in public comment. And as an educator, as a parent, as a social worker, if it's related to school, and you guys have a charge around it, I beg of you to be mindful and forthright in your thoughtfulness about how every person that might want to present can present in front of you in an equitable manner. And Mr. Kwasinski mentioned having a student speak via technology, and while I commend that, that's not equitable by any shake of the stick. If a person does not have a restraining order from this building per se, then and you're holding a public forum event, then I would hope that you would figure out ways ahead of time to have all bodies that are likely to present in an equitable manner, and that is here in person. Because we're supposed to present to you, but a good portion of everybody has presented to this audience tonight. And even if person A is here on Skype or whatever, there's a lot missed. And so I just ask you to consider that going forward for future meetings.
Anyone else? Okay, we'll consider this segment of our meeting complete. Thank you all for your comments. Thank you for sharing your thoughts. We're grateful that we have such a passionate community that cares about our students and their education. Okay, next on the agenda is East Hampton High School concerns. And before we begin our discussion, I'd like to clarify a few points. There have been some questions about the school committee's ability to add an item to our agenda after it's been posted. And I just wanted to explain that under the state's open meeting law, a posted agenda shall, quote, include a listing of all topics that the chair reasonably anticipates will be discussed at the meeting, end quote. If a matter is brought to the attention of the chair after the notice has been posted and it does not require immediate action, it should be put off to a later meeting. If it does, however, require immediate action, the meeting notice may be updated. We've confirmed with the Attorney General's office that our decision to revise the agenda to include this topic is acceptable under the circumstances. Just want to be sure everyone understands that. As most everyone is aware, we've had a number of troubling issues arise at the high school in recent months. An incident occurred in March which precipitated a student walkout. We learned that prior to the walkout, a number of events occurred and incidents are continuing. Most recently, a Confederate flag was flying on a truck in the high school parking lot, and a student wore a Confederate flag sweatshirt to school. On Monday, a group of students held a walkout and a sit-in at the high school to protest those incidents. Through all of this, the school district has been trying to balance the interests and rights of all students, which is a difficult task. We've looked at case law, and we've spoken with General Counsel for the district, the Mass Association of Superintendents General Counsel's office, the District Attorney's Office, the Attorney General, the ACLU, the U.S. Department of Justice, and the Assistant U.S. Attorney. We need to protect freedom of speech, but also ensure that it does not disrupt the learning environment for our students. The superintendent issued a temporary ban on the Confederate flag on school property for yesterday and today until the school committee could meet and discuss this matter. And I would like to clarify an incident that occurred today that was reported inaccurately on the news. A student did arrive at school today wearing a Confederate flag sweatshirt, and it was reported that the student was allowed to stay, and that is not true. The student was ushered into the office, a conversation took place, and the student was required to leave the premises. So I just wanted to clarify that because that was inaccurately reported on the news today. Okay, all of that being said, I'd like to at this time open this matter up for discussion among committee members. But before I do that, I am going to call on Nicolette Grahowski, who's going to read a statement from Mayor Karen Cadieux. She's a member of the school committee, but she's unable to be here with us tonight. So we're going to hear from Mayor Cadieux first.
Good evening. I'm Nicolette Grahowski, Mayor Cadieux's assistant and her delegated mayor in her absence. I'm covering the meeting for her this evening and letting her know the discussions and listening to everything that's going on, and I am in contact with her throughout her absence. For those of you who do not have Facebook or have not been on Facebook as of today, I have a prepared statement that the mayor has posted on her page. I am pleased to share that after meetings with the U.S. Attorney's Office to discuss and request their services regarding the racial tensions at East Hampton High School, they are willing to assist us in scheduling a community forum with the Civil Rights Unit. More information will be forthcoming as scheduled. And as the proceedings have been going on this evening, I have been in contact with Mayor Cadieux, and we're trying to get that forum as soon as possible. And that's all I have. Thank you.
Thank you very much. Okay, before we proceed, I'd also like to ask Superintendent Follansbee if you have anything you'd like to comment on with regard to this matter.
Thank you, Deb. I just wanted to take a few minutes to say thank you to all of you who have come and shared your thoughts. And we are listening to everything everyone says, and we are taking that in and we're acting on it. We received a number of anonymous reports early on, and a number of reports that were secondhand or hearsay. I just want to be clear with everyone that we cannot act on those reports. We do not tolerate discrimination. We do not tolerate our students being treated in unfair ways. We do not tolerate bullying. But in order to be able to act on any of those incidents, we need somebody to report directly what has happened and who's been involved. Now, we've learned that some people are feeling that uncomfortable reporting to administration or perhaps even to me. So we've let our students and our parents know that there are other avenues. You can report to a trusted colleague and our teachers as well. Trusted colleague in our schools. You can report to one of our guidance counselors. We have 3 counselors who work with our students, and we do refer our students when we know that they need support. You can report to me, and you can also report to school committee members. And I urge you to report any incidents that you observe or that have happened to you directly. We want to know, and we will deal with them. The incidents that have been reported to us have been dealt with with appropriate actions and with appropriate discipline. So please, please let us know of the incidents that are occurring so that we can take care of them. I also want to, I want to reiterate or give kudos to Eamon Graham, one of our wonderful high school students. Eamon, you spoke so eloquently. I don't think anyone could speak more eloquently than you did about the power of education. And it of course, makes me feel wonderful that you spoke about the wonderful education you've gotten in our high school and the education about diversity and about respect. We want every one of our students to have that same educational opportunity. And if they don't, we need to find ways to provide it. What we have put into place now, since the events occurred back in March, is, and we've said this before, a group from the Collaborative for Education in Northampton. And Sapphire DeYoung is the consultant for that group. Her expertise is in diversity and in respect and in having all voices heard. She's been doing forums with our students, with our parents, with our teachers. The next one will be with administrators. We've had suggestions that she do a forum with our teachers and students together. And we're listening to all of those ideas. We believe that the work that Sapphire is doing with us is going to enable all voices to be heard and to begin this healing process. We know we have a lot of work to do. We know we have issues. But it is my belief that in working together, and I'm going to reiterate what some of the others of you have said this evening, it's about coming together, about working together. And I know many of you have reached out to me to do that, and it's so much appreciated, because that's how we're going to make a change. That and the educational process that we have in our high school, and by continuing to listen. So again, thank you for all for being here. We've received new information this evening, and we will use that going forward and in our efforts to make a positive change in our high school. And thank you to our students for being here and having the courage to stand up and speak to us all. And Eamon, again, thank you for the eloquent way you shared that information with all of us. We're so very proud of all of our students who stood up and had the courage to express their thoughts. So thank you.
Okay, at this time I'll open up the floor for conversation among the committee. Cindy.
Okay. I'm going to read this because I wanted to make sure that I got out all the things that I wanted to say tonight. I want to start out with saying thank you to everybody who emailed us. We may not have gotten back to you. We had got a flurry, actually a storm of emails, but I want you to know that we read every single one. At least I personally read every single email, and I know the other committee members do too. I respect all the different viewpoints and listen and really consider them very carefully. It's difficult to respond to everybody, but know that you're heard. And I think the few people that I have been able to get back to have gotten that sense that we are hearing you, listening, and respecting your opinion. That being said, I'd like to just read this. I'm a teacher as well as a school committee member, so my perspective really is about the educational environment that we need to create. Schools around the nation support and teach students our rights under the First Amendment. We consider these rights to be the cornerstone of our freedom. But schools are also in charge of creating a supportive educational environment that is conducive to learning And as such, we are granted some latitude in controlling that environment. We have dress codes, behavior and discipline policies, and we have bans on inappropriate language. School districts limit to some degree freedom of speech and freedom of expression for the purpose of creating educational environments and stopping disruptions of learning. There have been many court cases concerning the issue of the Confederate flag. In these cases, the courts have supported schools in banning the flag from the school property if it can be shown that the presence of the flag significantly disrupts the education of students. We are still working on these issues and concerns that have arisen over the past weeks, and the school is still raw with emotion. In my opinion, it is crystal clear that in this present environment and for the foreseeable future, the Confederate flag presents a significant disruption to the education of our students. We need to ban its presence and get down to healing our schools. I would like to see the entire school participate in lessons on perspective taking. And I have many ideas that I'm willing to share and have been sharing about how we could do this. Our democracy depends on us learning to accept our differences as well as our similarities. Though this can be difficult to do, especially when opinions are so polarized, I believe that it would go a long way toward closing the divide. But in the meantime, as we begin the process of healing this divide, I believe that we need to ban the Confederate flag and continue the ban beyond the school year because it continues to be an electrically charged image. We have a 3-year program being developed to heal the school. So the idea that the flag will only be an issue for a short period of time doesn't make any sense. We don't expect the healing to happen overnight, and we shouldn't expect that the Confederate flag's ability to ignite feelings of vulnerability and anger and anxiety is going to change in the near future. I believe that we have more than enough proof that it is disruptive to the learning in our schools, and thus both the ability and the responsibility to ban this image from our school grounds, except within a lesson of our nation's history.
Thank you, Cindy.
Thank you, Cindy.
Marissa?
Sure. Cindy, I would agree with you. I think you make a very important point here about the distinction between public speech, the freedom of speech in a public space, and a learning environment. And there are all sorts of behaviors and expressions that East Hampton as a school district, as well as all districts in the U.S., limit in order to promote a healthy and inclusive learning environment. I think that we cannot know the intentions of students who display these flags. It's not our position to presume or to even speculate, but we can know that it is historically linked to slavery, oppression, to hate crimes. So whether or not those students intend to project those feelings, those associations exist for students of color. And we can't offer an inclusive and safe environment if we aren't sensitive to those associations. I also would echo the thanks to the people here. I think there is always intrinsic value to having public conversations and to hearing from the community. I'm also, quite frankly, a little confused about why this had to make it to the school committee. It seems clear to me from the East Hampton Public School District policy and from state law that schools have the authority to judiciously make decisions about what kind of student expressions are permitted. And so it concerns me, and I know that this is a really complicated situation, and I'm hearing how much disagreement exists in our community, so I realize that the people who have to make these decisions now, myself included, are in a difficult situation. But nonetheless, we as a district have just made an invigorated commitment to really be working on racial sensitivity, and I'm really concerned about the lack of leadership that we couldn't immediately come to a more common sense understanding of the Confederate flag's danger in a public school environment that is currently experiencing such tension around racial conflict. So I accept the responsibility of making this decision, but I would like to gain some clarity over whether the school committee is being asked to adjust or to clarify the policy that gives school administrators authority to make these kinds of decisions, or are we being called to actually make a decision about how to manage student behavior? Because I think I would like to understand my role in what precisely I am voting for.
Why don't you address it?
So if I could address that, Marissa. It is not about us not understanding what the implications are of policy, but we have been threatened with lawsuits, more than one. And I don't believe that it's my responsibility, not my responsibility, but my place to make a decision that could end up in a lawsuit that would cost the district a substantial amount of money and years of litigation in court without input from the school committee members. And that's why that decision was not made without your input.
Thank you for that clarification.
And I think my sense is that if things had not been so emotionally charged in the beginning, the school might have reacted differently, at least I hope. The school would have reacted differently and just simply had a conversation about the flag and why it's not appropriate for a school environment. But I think the hesitation in reacting was because things are already so heated. I think that people were taking more time to think about this stuff. But I would hope that in a normal situation you would just pull the student aside, have a conversation, and make that decision right then and there that it is going to be disruptive. Because, I mean, it seems pretty clear. There's not much confusion that things have been disrupted already, and that we don't need anything that's going to inflame that.
And I also think that we have had to be reflective, and we've done a lot of research in terms of this, as I think Chairperson Luznia alluded to. We have talked with our school council. We have talked with the Massachusetts Association of School Superintendents Council. We've talked with lawyers from the ACLU. Today I talked with the Anti-Defamation League. And we've talked with the Attorney General's office. We wanted to be sure that we were thoughtful and reflective in making this decision, because as I think you've mentioned, there are complexities here, and it's not a black and white decision. I think we see that from the comments that have been made here tonight. So we've tried to be thoughtful and reflective, and to get advice from the experts on the right path to take. And so we're here this evening to include school committee members, in that decision and the possible consequences of that decision.
Other comments?
Well, I didn't prepare anything, but I just wanted to thank the community members for speaking. And it is important that we are listening to all of you, because you're all part of this community, as am I. There's one thing that kind of stuck out at me, and this may not really have anything to do with, the policy or not, but it was about, people getting offended in life. And yes, that is true. People will get offended. I get offended. And I'm a mother and I have a young children, and it's important that I teach them that their come from is not to offend people intentionally. And maybe this, this may not be an intentional thing, and this flag means something to people, and it means something different to others. And but it's charged, It's charged, and it's clear that it's disruptive, and I think it's important that part of our curriculum is that we are raising and educating people that are becoming members of our society. And I do believe that we can come together as a community. I think it's possible. And there are things that are divisive, and yes, we do have freedom of speech, but I think it's important that we are teaching our young people to accept everybody and to listen to everybody and to be open to people's ideas. And it clearly is disruptive in the schools. And with everything that's happening in this moment, it's just important to be able to move on from this and to not have, I'm sorry, I'm trying to get my words out there, but I just, I'm not here to limit anyone's freedom of speech, but I think in a school setting, we're here to provide an education for our students. And we're here to provide an education for everyone, one that isn't, where they're not disruptive, where they have access to all of the things that we provide here. And I think that, this is a symbol that is charged. It's charged. And I think, I just don't think it belongs in our schools. That's my personal opinion.
And I want to say too, I agree with a lot of what my colleagues have said here. I kind of, as I was listening to everybody, I was thinking kind of what I was leaning towards was asking that we continue the ban, definitely for now, as I feel like you were saying, Marissa, kind of in this climate, there's really no way for this discussion to move forward as long as that as long as the Confederate flag keeps showing up at school. And it does seem, the timing of it really does seem like it was kind of meant to inflame some of the already existing tension within the school, which I'm, as a community member, as somebody who cares about the school, I'm really upset that somebody felt like that was the right thing to do. I'm willing to kind of think beyond just the rest of the school year too. I'm kind of wondering about also what you said about, Marissa, about kind of looking at the policy around these decisions just to make it easier in times like this for the superintendent, for the building administrators to respond more quickly to the situation and kind of more directly. So I'd be interested in looking at that as well, if that's something that we want to do or if that we think would be helpful. And I've been thinking about this a lot over the last and one thing that I feel like doesn't usually come up when people talk about the Confederate flag, especially being in the North, is that, there were people from our community who fought for the Union and who died fighting for the Union. And they were, primarily very young men who kind of went out into the unknown, didn't really know what they were getting into, didn't have a whole lot of resources themselves, and the conditions of the Civil War were just awful. It was really, really awful. The people who didn't die in battle, a lot of them died. And I just want to read the names real quick of the folks in our community who did fight for the Union, just because I don't want to project what they would have thought about this. I think that that's really wrong. I don't like it when people do that with historical figures, but I just want to remember them because I don't think we remember them very often. So those who died in battle were William Hickey, Daniel W. Lyman, Charles Tencelliant, Roland S. Williston. Those who died in prisoner of war camps was Rick P. Stone and Sean Rensselaer. And those who died of disease, Clinton Bates, Augustus M. Clapp, James H. Clark, Chauncey R. Hendrick, Daniel Kane, Elisha C. Lyman, Henry Lyman, Salmon H. Lyman, Herbert W. Pomeroy, Lewis P. Walt, and Charles L. Webster. Thank you.
Names.
Yeah, that's what I thought too when I was reading it. I was like, I recognize half of these names. Small community.
So, and as we all sort of indulge our niche interests here, I take a lot of interest in policy, and to sort of step back just for one moment, I think if I have any reservations about making a decision about a single item like the Confederate flag, it's because I think that there is real purpose to school policies that are flexible and allow the discretion of our teachers and our building administrators, because we trust them as professionals to have the wisdom and to have the knowledge of their school building to be able to make decisions in specific contextual understandings of situations. You know, the slippery slope argument is a real tempting one. And I think if we had months of Turk and Armenian conflict in our school district, we might then also think about Turkish flags as something that we need to consider. But that is not the context. The existing context is racial tension, really originating in concerns around exercises of white supremacy. And so, given that context, it does make sense that we should apply this policy to the Confederate flag. We don't have a list of every bad word that students aren't allowed to say. We don't have a list of every offensive symbol that students aren't allowed to wear, because that's not how policy works. That, for one, students will always find a runaround. There's always a new bad word. And that also does not allow for the application of context, which I think is really essential if you're going to have just rulings.
I agree with you, and that's why the policy itself gives you that latitude. It doesn't spell out everything that could possibly go wrong, but it gives you the latitude to look at something that is significantly disruptive to the educational process.
Right.
And I think given what's been going on and the issues that we're already working on, that's why it's clear that at this time, and for the foreseeable, it fits within that disruption of the educational environment.
Yeah, I just don't. I just don't want to do that thing where we ban the Confederate flag and then next week there's something else.
Right.
Because we can't be
Correct.
constantly chasing. It needs to be based upon principles and assertions of value and assertions of mission statement.
And I do think one thing that was said earlier that I really liked was that we really need to be asking the students what it means to them as well. And not necessarily like, okay, this student says like this means Southern pride, and this student says like this means that I'm not safe in the school. Well, they're both equal perspectives. I'm not saying that. You know, I think it is important to hear what students who feel an attachment to the Confederate flag, what it is about that that's interesting to them. It could be that, you know, I mean, I know that Peter has talked a lot in the last year or so that I've been on the committee about how kind of history and history class is not something that's as valued through standardized testing, for instance, in our state as other subjects. And I think like this is a really good example of why history is so important and why it's so important for people to understand where this stuff comes from. So yeah, and I think we have a lot of fora scheduled going forward. There are lots of plans in place to address school climate and culture, which I think is really important. And I'm just hoping that we can make sure that we kind of find out what is going on with those folks too. And I appreciate those who did come out and speak tonight, and I'm definitely willing to hear more from them too. I don't want to. It is like meanings, symbols, and meanings shift so much, and I don't want to make any assumptions. On the other hand, I want people to feel safe to come to school. So,
Peter?
So before I get into the details of why I'm going to respectfully dissent from what my colleagues have said, I want to share just a little bit about how I've gotten there in the time. You may have noticed during the conversation I took notes. That's part of my way of trying to listen, and I haven't had time to reflect on everything that's been said tonight. And I'm well aware, because I see many faces in the room, of people who will be disappointed in this decision, and I take Mr. Meerpohl's advice about being held accountable quite seriously. I frankly wasn't thinking of running for re-election again until this came along, and now I think I may give the citizens an opportunity to issue their verdict on my my contribution to leadership in the community. I don't understand as clearly as some of my colleagues the clarity around the disruption. And part of why I don't understand that clarity is, as I understand the material and substantial disruption test, is that it has to be directly from the expression itself, that it cannot be the result of a response to the expression that is either incidentally or intentionally designed to create a disruption. One of the interesting documents that I would have you refer to is the number of people who visited the school yesterday who signed in, and under the portion where you indicate the purpose of your visit, the word that showed up most often was disruption. And we've heard people quoted. There have been social media posts where people have said, if the issue is there needs to be a disruption, we'll create a disruption because then they'll have to pull the flag. My understanding is that's the heckler's veto. That's, I don't like what someone is saying, and so I pick up a rock and throw it through the window, creating a disruption, and people say in response to that, stop the person from saying it, rather than addressing my behavior. So I'm less certain. I think the difficulty here is that the disruption is emotional. It's not the tangible things that we see in whether or not a student is in class. It's how the students feel, and it's much harder for me to be certain that that's creating the disruption that is substantial enough to justify banning this symbol. I'm also concerned about the implementation, because while I agree we may not want to get into what comes next, I wonder what a ban of the Confederate flag would entail. Certainly we would still allow students in classes to write research papers about the Civil War and examine and perhaps even include in those documents. There's no question but that we would do that, I think.
Correct.
But somewhere between the certainty of that and the certainty of what we think we would be banning, there can be any number of instances that could come up that I'm not certain about, and that I'm reluctant to endorse outright or to encourage the superintendent and the building officials to endorse here tonight. So I guess I'll back up to where I meant to start, and that is that last Friday I thought we had gotten to a very difficult place, but the right place to be. Because I felt that way, I immediately sought out people who disagreed with me, and I haven't stopped since Friday night engaging in conversations with people who disagree and who say, no, Peter, you should be on the other side. The better way is to be on the other side. And I've tried to hear them. And I mean no disrespect to anyone who spoke with me that I haven't yet become completely convinced. I'm just still struggling with the idea that we would step on to a process where we're not certain about the degree of disruption or its origin in the context of what the tradition tells us and its implementation. But ultimately, and finally for me, and I'm sorry that we wouldn't be able to project it, but I want East Hampton Public School District to pursue policies that allow people, even when they confront utterly what to them is offensive and disagreeable speech, to do what Sophia Kahn did 4 weeks ago in Birmingham, England, when she stood with her hands in her pockets and a smile on her face, confronting people who told her she didn't belong in England. She was supremely confident that the community, that the overwhelming community there believed that she should be there, and I want the students who graduate from this school district to believe that and to have the strength of conviction that the overwhelming majority of people here, and I suspect many of the students who are involved with the display of the Confederate flag, disavow racism. I can't speak for all of them. I don't know what everybody thinks, but my overall sense of this community is that it should give strength to these young people, that the arc of history is bending in their direction, and that we don't need to add a punishment where we send a child home from school because of that. It's going to be difficult, I know, but for those reasons, as best as I've been able to express them now, I am reluctant to endorse a move away from where we were on Friday. So, thank you.
Peter, I think in response to your how you were understanding disruption, I agree with you about the heckler's veto. That while I absolutely respect the right of community members and parents and students to protest where they feel they need to, that can't be how we make determinants about disruptions, because that's dangerous on both sides. You can arbitrarily gather a group of people and decide something is offensive and do that, or on the other hand, if that is the only definition for disruption, then that leaves the fate of vulnerable students in the hands of whether or not a group is going to get together and cause a disruption on their behalf, right? So that doesn't work. And my clarity over the Confederate flag as a potential disruption to a safe and effective learning environment preceded the parent demonstration in the school buildings. I can't know what it feels like to be a student of color, but as a white person, I take at their word the testaments and the knowledge produced by people of color. From groups like NAACP to Black sociologists to psychologists who describe the effects of racial intimidation on young people of color. I don't think we need to wait until students demonstrably experience a disruption to assume that symbols which are particularly and historically, culturally dominantly associated with white supremacy. We don't need to wait for something really measurable to be concerned that that could cause a disruption to a learning environment.
You could, you could well. I am, as certain as I am about the words I chose to say, I'm certain I could be wrong, and it makes. But that's what makes me hesitant, because I think when you get to the place where it involves a decision about what someone chooses to wear, that what I want to do is reach out and embrace the students who feel at all that their education is at all disrupted by that, saying that you underestimate how strong you are. And that may not be my place. I've said in every communication I've shared with people, I've always prefaced it with, I come from a position of extraordinary privilege and security. I'm a white male born into affluence, and I know that puts me in a different place. And I try to get outside of that, but ultimately, I think I can only claim to honestly represent what I sincerely believe. And that's what I would say to the students who are concerned, and that's what when I was in the assembly yesterday, the first focus group, I didn't see all the focus groups, but I was in there for the bulk of the 90 plus minutes that it went. And admittedly, I came in and out of the room, but I've checked with a couple of students. There was a period of time when they were spoken to. There was a period of time when they spoke to each other and drafted questions. There was a period of time when they were allowed to ask Mr. Burke and Ms. Wilson questions, and they responded. And then there was a period of time where cards were read with questions for people who might have been reluctant to speak. And Sapphire did, I thought, a terrific job, Sapphire DeJong, of facilitating the conversation and letting people add. Was the balance perfect? I'm certainly sympathetic to any student who says, I wish there'd been more time with us and less time talking. Fine, and that's a fair point. But there was a conversation that went on at some level. I will point out that one of the difficulties we've had in this overall conversation is the accuracy of the information you get. I was told within minutes, almost before the doors had closed, by people that all they did was talk to us the whole time. Now, I was in the room and know that wasn't factually true, and it didn't come from students. By the way, I would echo what's been said before. Every student I met and had a conversation with was terrific. But I was told that that the folks did in that room was talk to the kids. I was in the room. That isn't what happened. That's not what happened. There may have been too much of that, but there were moments when questions were asked and answers were given. So I know that it may not have been enough, it may not have been complete, but the competing narratives of the story of what's going on in East Hampton right now, that's why we have to do what the superintendent has suggested. We have to go back and verify and investigate and fully determine what actually happened on the ground. So, you know, there are other, I spoke with Tess before. She may disagree with my characterization that there was opportunities for students to speak or that there was too much talk or too little, but we're both in the room looking and listening to it. And what I heard from people who weren't in the room afterwards was different than what I experienced when I was in the room.
Can I comment on that?
Yeah.
Considering I am this, sorry, I'm trying not to get emotional because like, I have been in this situation since it started. Like this whole experience from a student's perspective is so overwhelming, and if you know me, you know my view on all this, and I'm trying to take a very unbiased approach because it's hard for me to do that. Like, as my friends know, I'm a very opinionated person, but I think what all students are trying to do in this situation is just, we want to be listened to. And I understand that you were there and you did converse with us, and we thank you for that. But I feel like in this situation, the focus groups and that meeting that happened yesterday, and the 4 meetings that happened for grade level yesterday, they did happen, and yes, we got to speak, but what the students want is to be heard in full capacity rather than just be talked to. And yes, we did speak, but it was for what we felt was like 15 minutes, and it was on cards, and we wanted to express our opinions to everyone. And maybe that's just me, maybe I just want to get my words out there, but I do know that what the students are experiencing right now is confusion and hurt and tension, and between both sides. And what I'm experiencing is one side, and I do want to have those conversations with the other side just because I want to understand what's going on. And I think that most students feel like they need to know what's going on. Not confidentiality or anything that's strictly supposed to be forbidden for talking about, but just, we just need to understand. I don't know what to say. I'm so sorry. I'm just trying to keep, I don't know. It's just been such a stressful experience for these students, and I feel like a lot of the conversations driven by parents and teachers, what is not true actually. A lot of this, that's not true. A lot of the students, and majority of the students are leading this conversation, but I feel like a lot of the students are confused and scared to speak, and they need to have that environment for them to do so. And that was attempted yesterday, and I'm glad that we are attempting to have that conversation. But a majority of it was just we were listening and not speaking. And I know actually a small group of students are comfortable to speak, but a majority are not. And I feel like we need more of a comfortable environment. And I think that the sit-in yesterday, hold on, let me turn my face. I think it was a demonstration, and I think the only way students or the students who have a strong opinion about this can express their opinion and show that they have been disturbed by the Confederate flag. And I feel like this is the only way that students know and understand how to convey their feelings, is with that sit-in. Is it the best way or maybe the most productive way? I don't know. But I do know that as a student in East Hampton High School, I don't know how to feel, and I don't know how to express, and I don't know what to do, like when I see that my friends are being scared to speak and scared to be at this school because of some flags. And I don't want to get emotional in front of the whole crowd, and I'm sorry. It's okay.
I would confirm, I think without violating the rules that were established for the nature of the conversation there, that you asked a really good question. And I thought I saw Ms. Wilson, I believe, in that case, trying to respond. And so I think you're right, that when you create an environment where students feel comfortable to ask questions and get to talk with people, then then there is room for that good conversation to go forward. So thank you for that. I thought you did a terrific job.
And I thought you were very eloquent.
Yes. I just feel like many of the students have a protection. Like, I certainly have protections and shells that I can protect myself, and I know that I can speak without being targeted, because, like, there's elements about me that I maybe should be ashamed about. I am a bisexual and biracial woman, and like I am white passing, and I have I have privileges, obviously, but then I know my friends and some students don't have those privileges, and it scares me that some students and many students can't express those opinions, and especially when, like, yes, students talked and opinions were expressed yesterday, but not everyone feels that comfortable. And when a student or a symbol of hatred, in my opinion, I know if people can have other opinions, that's totally okay with me, and I try my best to respect those opinions. But if I know at least one student feels unsafe because of that, and if they're my friends, and most of them are graduating, but I know that future, especially freshmen who maybe don't know and can't express their opinions because they feel unsafe or they don't know how to yet because they're younger, it scares me that they feel unsafe. And at least if one student, and we know that there's multiple, feel unsafe because of this symbol, then something has to be done about it for now. And it scares me that if nothing will be done, or something can't be done after I graduate. That's okay.
And Peter, I just want to reiterate what Marissa said. My opinion doesn't come from the disruption of Monday. My reaction was immediate when I heard the events that have been happening, and then I began to start researching whether or not I was right. What does it mean to have a disruption in schools to the educational environment? As a teacher, I have my understanding of what that is, but I checked it out with multiple case studies to really get a sense of whether or not we have some clarity here. And I just say I feel very confident in my belief that the Confederate flag is causing and would cause a significant disruption to our students' education. And that we have to, as a school committee, empower our district to respond to that disruption and ban it.
I think one of the frustrations of lightning round symbols like the Confederate flag is that now it's reduced this really complex situation into a yes or no vote on a single object. And I think that being in that position is going to eliminate some of the nuance and the complexity that we have been striving to acknowledge as we've been addressing these various issues. I think the other situation that we might be facing right now in this evening as we're called to make this vote is that this vote is operating as a moral indicator for our community of which direction our school committee is facing. And I personally feel some concern that as a committee, or maybe I should just I will just own this entirely on my own, that I myself as an elected representative haven't been enough forthcoming with my positions and my interpretation of what's been going on in our schools. And so, I want to say to the public that I have deep concern for the students who are facing charges. And I want to see our schools promoting restorative justice. I have deep concern for a disproportionate criminalization of young men of color. I think there needs to be a really distinct boundary between school response to student behavior and school-based police authority. That's something we need to really understand our goals as a committee and as a district. I guess I'm just saying this because I don't want our vote to be a reductive indicator. I think that it would be useful for the community, for our committee to be to make positive assertions of our values.
I'd just like to throw out there that maybe this doesn't have to be a yes or no vote situation either.
Okay.
Maybe we can discuss making it something else.
Yeah.
And not a yes or no vote, and not a divisive situation.
What are you suggesting?
I don't really know.
Yeah.
But maybe there's another alternative here that would feel more collaborative going forward.
Right.
I just throw that out there. Just
It's
something
my,
to think
it's
about.
my sense that the overwhelming sentiment of everyone on the committee and everyone who's spoken tonight is to find the most effective way to go forward collaborating, and to some degree it has to do with how much risk, for lack of a better term, from my perspective, I'll speak only from my perspective, it probably comes down to how much risk am I willing to tolerate in favor of, the possible educational gains. Because really, I know that it's been discussed about this being a legal question, and I think the legal stuff, and I've read more Supreme Court and federal court and circuit court opinions, and I'm not a lawyer, and it's very hard, and I get why at the end of the day, I keep coming back to the educational piece, and I think I haven't heard anyone dispute that an educational response here is important, that figuring out, we've had suggestions. I was talking with the other day who talked about the success of mediated conversations between students who disagree, and particularly if the disagreement leads to actual behaviors where someone is guilty of violating a school rule, that it doesn't just go to the punishment, but that we then also follow through with mediation. And my sense is that Ms. Welson and Mr. Burke are both actively interested in that. So I'm not trying to be Pollyanna about all this and say that we can all just come together in one big hug at the end. We're not going to do that. This is an issue that provokes strong emotion. But I do think that we have an agreement about encouraging the administrative teams at each of the school buildings. I was speaking with one of the students, one as they came back from the corner of Williston Ave and the school driveway on yesterday morning, and then one in the Commons, and they both talked about the importance of having this conversation begin intentionally at a young age. And I heard from a parent today who's an administrator in another elementary school in the Valley, and he endorsed that opinion by the students, and I can't agree more with what the two students and this concerned parent said. So I think there's a lot of basis for agreement. I think the challenge for Mr. Burke and Ms. Wilson is, what do they do tomorrow? I think in the end that's the challenge, right?
And schools have to be able to limit some behavior if it is disrupting learning. You have to be able to do that. That's why we have student handbooks. It's why we have policies. And my concern is, I don't want to leave here having not done something to calm the situation and refocus the learning in the building. And you have something that ignites reactions that are extremely disruptive, and I think we've got to make that decision. I don't think it's something where we can just choose to do nothing about it and hope that everybody's going to have nice conversations. Believe me, I want us in our schools working on perspective taking. I want us talking on a daily, weekly, there are so many opportunities for teachable moments in school, but there are also times that we can fit into the curriculum, the exploration of hot issues, and how to deal with polarized thinking. There are opportunities within our curriculum to do all that. I am really not talking about restricting freedom of speech outside of school. But we have to be able to have some limits within the school day. I just passionately think that you can't enhance learning without that.
And I just want to clarify, I was not suggesting that we do nothing. I was just trying to think outside the box and think about whether there's some other alternative here that we could solve the issue without a yes or no vote to either support or ban an item of clothing.
Right.
If there was some other solution, and I realize and recognize, Peter, your point that, okay, Principal Burke and Vice Principal Wilson need help and guidance effective tomorrow. So that's a very real issue. But I was just wanting us to think about it and think about, are there any other ways that we could solve this problem?
The teacher in me is thinking of ideas, but I, as people have also said, they want to show respect to the, we're in the middle of an advanced placement week, and I know for a number of students at the school, they have important tests ongoing, and teachers have curriculum that they want to do, because the thought that occurs to me is, on the occasion, be deliberate about it. Create as the mayor has suggested and as the ACLU has offered, accelerate as rapidly as possible to the present and a minimum disruption to the other kinds of learning. The conversations that need to go on around divisive symbols like the Confederate flag. And in that environment, you would be able to talk about some of the others, and you would be able to get to what Marissa, I think, has accurately described as what are the core principles, and how do we show respect for difference? How do you tolerate what is almost intolerable? Because if you only tolerate the things that you get along with, that's right. So that we need to find out more in an educational context. I think we could do that. I think we could encourage the superintendent and the building administrators to talk with the teachers about accelerating the educational discussion specifically around the Confederate flag, since that's the precise topic of the moment. Again, and I defer to Tess because she was there throughout and has been there throughout other things. I only spent 3 hours in the school yesterday. That's a thin snapshot of what life there is like. I don't know what would be the most effective way forward, but I thought some of the students and some of the faculty were talking about the dress code, and kids were asking great questions. One of the students said, I'll give you an example, one of the best questions, I forget the gentleman's name, but he said, if the school can prohibit students from wearing alcoholic beverage things because it's illegal for students, since slavery's been abolished and secession has been deemed unconstitutional, why can't the school therefore ban this symbol of those two things? It's a great question. I don't know precisely the answer, but I certainly think it's a great question that the talented staff that we have and the bright minds that we've seen on display tonight could engage in a way that might bring people together. Even if it doesn't mean that people change necessarily what they wear, a conversation about it and doing things with an awareness of what it means for someone else, it might help. I mean, I've said to people today, I know you're not going to like the way I vote, but we're still going to, we're still going to inhabit this community together. We're still going to converse. We're still going to ally on other issues. And I think the kids, believe me, compared to the adults, the kids are way more talented. If adults can have that conversation, I'm completely confident that the kids at the high school can do it.
I think,
I wonder if I could just say one thing about kids, because I think Tess, you made some really good statements, and I'm hearing you, and I'm hearing that although you had a chance to be heard to some degree, it wasn't what was satisfying, wasn't what you needed. So I'm hoping, Tess, that you and others will be willing to come forward to us and share some ideas about how we can make that better for you, because I think that that's critical for us, that we make this worthwhile for you and give you and your friends and everyone a safe place to have your voices heard. And so I'm hoping we can get in touch tomorrow and see if we can start thinking of some ways to do that. Sorry, don't mean to be rude. She got an AP exam.
Right. So I think I was going to say that can happen, of course, and I think we're having the conversation, but I think that it's also up to us and the administrators to create a safe environment. From what I'm hearing, it is disruptive. And it's an urgent matter. Things, yes, we are in a very uncomfortable situation in this moment, and it's going to take time. But the urgency that is in front of us is what this is. And I think that having the dialogue will take time, and it can be facilitated, and so much learning can come from this, and so much learning has come from this, from what I'm experiencing, and it's an opportunity here, but it's also an urgent matter in that it's a charged and disruptive thing for the matters at hand, in order for kids to go to school tomorrow. It's you know, for them to see that symbol, it brings up a lot. And so I really want to act in a way that's urgent, in a way that is supportive of those students that are not feeling safe, as well as dialogue, as well as forums, as well as discussion and learning. It's all there. It's not like an either or.
I would like it if students from both sides of the issue could meet together and have a conversation and be led through that process professionally.
And I think that's what the students are asking for. Like
Right.
that's what
Bring
we've been
both
saying
sides
for
together.
many months now. I think that's what we want. I don't think that we're asking for many of the forums and the discussions that we've had previously. I don't think any of the students asking for definite punishments or anything. We just want to understand both sides, and I think that's what I want. Like I personally want to know the other side's story, because I am guilty of not. I'm guilty of just kind of only expressing my own opinions and not listening. And I want to know the other side, and I want to get to know the other side. And I think we tried that with the focus groups earlier on, I think last month, before April break. And that started to happen, but I think sadly it was being pushed towards a conversation about how to change the future and not, or how to lead to the future rather than fixing the issues at hand. And I think that now the issues at hand is to deal with this symbol. And both sides, you can argue that if you feel as though that this symbol is a symbol of hatred, you're now becoming emotional about it. And if you feel like it's a symbol of pride, you are now becoming emotional of it. And if you can argue that both sides, like just having both sides become so emotional about it in general is causing so much of a disruptance. Like you could just say that with both sides becoming so loud about it, as you saw in Public Speak tonight, that it should be banned just because, not even because why, just because it is.
And in an ideal world, we would have the time right now to just stop everything and really go about the business of having these conversations. But the reality is there's AP exams coming on. You have MCAS happening next week. You have senior finals that will be coming on. So there's a lot of things that are going on that are going to limit the school's ability to respond to this and generate those conversations as quickly as we would like. I mean, it's just logistically is not going to happen the way we would ideally. If this was September or October, we would be having totally different conversations and a completely different plan, and we wouldn't have that sense of urgency that I think we're having now.
I do also, sorry.
No, go on. I can talk
Well, I also want to say to that, I mean, you're talking about kind of our time resources being limited at this moment because there's so much other stuff going on. And I want to remind everybody, really, that another thing that is limited is resources in terms of the resources that we have to put into things like restorative justice, to having more counselors available, to having more, to being able to have more of a process. You know, it's a lot more expensive to sit down and like get a mediator to talk through two parties than it is to suspend somebody. So, and I'm not saying that we shouldn't do it because of that, but just that in the future, as we're looking at, you know, potentially, like if we're looking at Medicaid cuts, for instance, you know, if our state isn't able to fund mass health the way that we're funding now, the governor has suggested that, you know, we would have to take some money from education. There would be kind of necessary cuts. And so I just want to remind everybody that we might be moving more into an area of scarcity in terms of our resources. So like, it's just important for us as a community, if we think that's a priority, to make sure that like it's really a priority, you know, because we might be asked to choose in the future what we can pay for and what we can't. And I agree that it is a priority. So I guess I want people to get really excited about that, you know, because it might be something that we have to fight for in the future. You know, so sorry to be like such a downer. I didn't mean to bring it to that place. I'm just always thinking like, what happens if we lose everything?
Well, and Tess, I thank you for bringing your perspective to this panel. I just want to acknowledge the absurdity of these adults who never go into your school getting to make this decision on your behalf. But to maybe sort of to try to return it to the decision at hand. I think if we had more time, if we weren't in such a pressure cooker, we could probably come up with something rather elegant.
Yeah.
But I personally like the idea of whatever decision we make, have it be more than just yes, no, ban Confederate flag. I think that's a little bit limited in a way that doesn't provide an explanation for our decision making. While it also has its faults, the dress code policy that says you can't wear shirts that promote alcohol because that's illegal to you as a 17-year-old or whatever, there's a justification there. There's an inherent logic to that. And so the logic of disruption is highly abstract, and it's difficult for a lot of people to get their heads around for good reason. But I think it's useful to just refer back to policy that already exists. And we have non-discrimination policy that says that we that our district is not going to discriminate against people because of their race, color, sex, gender identity, religion, national origin, sexual orientation, or disability. And so it seems like any ban on the Confederate flag could be couched within the logical and policy justification of we can't have expressions that promote discrimination against people for these reasons. So that would be my recommendation in formulating a statement.
Should we, would it be possible that, like, I mean, because I know that we don't necessarily decide the dress code, but would it be something that maybe we should look into in the future in terms of like having more of a discussion about the dress code with actual stakeholders, like the people who go to the school every day?
That's good. I know, wasn't that, I've been thinking so much about the
we did
presentation
that with
from
the middle
Whitebrook
school
student.
last year. And that was really cool, and I really liked that process. Like, and it would be nice to relook, because I've been looking at the school dress code while I've been sitting here the whole time. And I would kind of like to kind of sit down with some students and other stakeholders and kind of see if that's something that we need to be more clear about or revise in some way.
We're typically not involved in creating it, but we're charged with approving it.
Okay. So that's why,
So
so that's why that came to us.
Yeah, she was
typically the
proposing
process.
amendments to it
Yeah.
and to clarify.
Then yeah, I like your idea about kind of approaching it from the non-discrimination standpoint.
And I like the idea that empowers to make decisions when, as I've said, my concern that the next thing is coming. It's around the corner, and I don't want our staff and our teachers to feel like they don't have the capacity to make decisions.
So are you suggesting that we frame this, whatever it is, whatever statement we're going to vote on, around supporting the non-discrimination policy and not so much around a particular issue of a particular item of clothing or flag or what have you?
It sounds like you're saying, though, that the Confederate flag falls within that discrimination policy. And that's what I was trying to say before. I don't think we really have to rewrite it. We just have to kind of clarify that that falls within that category. It's what educators do every day, is have to make those decisions.
Peter?
No, I don't want to. I'm fearful of extending the conversation unnecessarily in a purely academic way. As you read through that, Marissa, the one thing that's missing in there is that we won't discriminate against people on the basis of their political beliefs, right? There's a whole series of protected categories there that we are privileging above that, and we may for good reason. I think we should just be intentional about that and just say that we're clear that that's what we're doing, and that could still be okay, but we can't gloss over that because we're doing that, and as long as we're doing it explicitly, I think there's integrity to that. And even if I would vote no, I at least feel like it was a little bit more straight up. So again, I think the sense of the board, the committee, is pretty clear about what we would like to instruct the superintendent and administrative team to do. I think we will inevitably, the community is asking us to continue to address this issue, or not issue, but this concern. And there's a lot more to this. As we know, the genesis of this came about before the Confederate flag entered the conversation. I suspect that the conversation will continue after we reach some temporary or whatever determination about the Confederate flag. You know, as I've promised you folks before, I will continue to try to make the hardest, best argument I can for an educational response that assures students that our goal for them is to have the strength and the courage of their convictions and the confidence of the people around them. And boy, Tess, I hear that we're not yet there. I hear that loud and clear from you, and you're not alone. I'm not putting it only on what you've shared, but you certainly have done it very well tonight. Other people have done that. But I just think that there could be another way short of the ban. And I think that's all I should say about it, because I feel like everything else, I'm repeating it. And if it's persuasive, it's persuasive. If it isn't, it isn't. And I appreciate your hearing me out on it.
Do you have any other thoughts in terms of another way?
I wish that it could be I feel like I'm micromanaging what a job that belongs to Kevin and sorry, to Principal Burke and Vice Principal Wilson, and I know the history folks best, so I see all 4 of their classrooms that I've been in and the kind of learning that goes on there, and wish it could be there tomorrow, but they've got other things to do in the meantime. I don't want to dictate what Brian Brown is talking about with his students tomorrow in class, but I do think that the teachers were very generous yesterday. You agree, Tess, right? They extended the time. Initially, it was a 7:49 to 8:39 meeting, and it ran well past 9 o'clock before folks were coming out. So I think the teachers have been supportive of allowing, this to be talked about. Or they were yesterday, certainly. I don't know how much they'll be if it's coming from us. So I'm at a loss. I'm frustrated by that, because I think some part of what we say has to include the flag, and whether or not a student can wear the flag tomorrow morning at 7:40 in East Hampton High School. Right? I mean, I think that that's essentially what the superintendent has asked us to give her counsel on.
I feel comfortable saying that the Confederate flag on school property in any form, unless it's as part of learning in a history class, is disruptive to the educational process and therefore is not allowed. And falls within the discrimination policy. I think the words are already there in the handbook. We just have to empower the district to say this falls within that category. I don't think that it is, I don't think it's as hard as we're making it. I'm sorry, it's only me, but.
Second. With that said, is there any other discussion?
No,
Are we ready to vote on?
Yeah, I'm just trying to think of the wording. That would be.
What I was going to call for is if anyone had a specific motion that they wanted to present.
How is what I just said?
Excellent.
Could we propose that the Confederate flag in any form does not. I move. That the Confederate flag in any form, unless as part of a history lesson.
I don't think you would say history lesson, because there could be.
True.
It's part of an educational
lesson. Is not appropriate for the school property.
Because of our
policy.
Non-discrimination.
Our non-discrimination policy.
I was thinking
dress code.
Yeah, I think it falls so many places.
Would we also want to add to that at this time?
I think that's always, you can always return.
Yeah, we can always take it. I mean, if magically everything changed, I think we could relook at it. But for now, I think that.
So, you're saying you don't want to put any time parameters on this. You want to, I mean, one option would be to have this in place for the remainder of the school year.
I think that's too short a
I think at
period.
this time
I think the healing is not going to happen. It's still going to be an inflammatory symbol that's going to disrupt learning. So all we've done is we've taken care of it till June, and then it will have the potential to start right back up in September. In fact, we're going to have to make sure that we have conversations about it all summer long and in the beginning of September, so that we're proactive rather than reactive. And I think that if we make a decision tonight, that we just make that decision for now. Go on back to the education of our students. That's my prime focus, is creating an educational environment where everybody can blossom.
Agreed.
Do you have a motion and a second? Sorry.
Was that a second?
Oh, I seconded earlier, but yes, second.
I'm sorry, I thought you seconded. I apologize.
Okay, I am obliged to ask if there's any further discussion before we vote on this. And I'd just like to say personally, if anyone else doesn't have anything to say, that while I agree with much of what's been said here, I am personally very concerned about the slippery slope situation here. Very concerned about that personally. And also the heckler's veto. I have strong concerns about that. And personally, I think I would rather have this be something till the end of the year, and we can reassess the whole situation and perhaps look at our policies in a broader way over the summer, and maybe come forward with a better solution for the fall. But that's my opinion.
Do we want some more discussion about that? I mean, just my opinion's different, but everybody may feel.
I mean, I think that Tess could speak to this, or other students might tell us in the days ahead. If they were assured that the Confederate flag was banned for the remainder of the year and that it would be part of an ongoing conversation, that certainly is different than a blanket, perpetual ban. But I don't know. That it may not. That may be a difference without distinction, or a distinction without a difference. I forget what the phrase is.
I don't know as well about leaving, like, if we did a ban until the end of the year, just so that we had some time to kind of consult again, kind of with our legal folks, to kind of understand better what the ramifications are. I just want to make sure we're doing this right. You know what I mean? I don't want this to blow up again publicly in a way that's not productive. You know, but I do think we need to do something right now, because the situation is warranting something right now. So I would be okay with doing it till the end of the school year, with the plan to address it in more detail over the summer.
That motion's not on the table.
We're having a discussion about the motion. The motion was made, it was seconded, now we're discussing it, so.
To change the motion, policy is not permanent.
With all due respect, and I experienced a little bit of this already this week. I know that we may not be doing the perfect job in the eyes of the folks that are out there, but I think you could see that there's a good faith effort going on up here, and I would respectfully ask people in the audience right now to let us deliberate and see if we can get there. If we make a mistake, I'm fully confident that we'll be informed of it in no time at all. So, I really do. I just have to say, please, let us sort it out. We'll do our best, and then you can respond at the next public speak, or you can send us an email right now.
And we are allowed, once a motion's been made, it's been seconded, the proper next step is to ask if there's any further discussion before a vote is taken. So that's what this is. This is any further discussion before a vote is taken.
And people can decide if they think there's a better bill coming down to vote against this, knowing that they will very quickly be able to propose the alternative and vote for that,
Right.
if they so wish, which is part of what the discussion facilitates.
Right, and that happens often, where a motion is made, seconded, there's discussion, and the motion changes. Or we vote on that motion, and it may fail in favor of a different motion. So that's very common procedure. Anyway, so we were on the topic of additional discussion before a vote. So Sarah, you were saying that you thought there was some merit to making this.
I just want to make sure that we do it and we word it in a way that's going to stick. Because I don't want us to get sued and have to get rid of it completely, and then everybody wears Confederate flags to school. You know what I mean? But I think we definitely have to do something now until the end of the school year at least, and look at it, and I would imagine extend it. But I kind of feel like, so I've been, I've been trying to read all the case law as well, which I'm not a lawyer, so it just gets more and more confusing the more you read it. And I haven't had a chance to really consult with anybody directly about that. So I do have some concerns with doing something that's potentially precedent-setting, that potentially has unanticipated long-term consequences that could be detrimental to the very thing that we're trying to do. So that's where my concern is coming from. But it's not, I'm willing to go either way. Was something I was thinking about.
I would agree. I would agree with that.
But and it's again like something that I could be totally wrong about too.
Okay, well, we have a motion on the floor. Is there any other discussion on that matter at this time?
I don't think so.
Okay, so we have a motion on the floor. It's been seconded. Sue, did you write the motion down exactly?
A Confederate flag in any form on school property unless as part of the educational lesson is not appropriate, is disruptive to an educational process and not allowed, and falls within the discrimination policy until the end of the school year.
Okay, so it's in the motion until the end of the school year.
I thought
that was the other.
I thought it was in the motion until
it was
Right.
just.
This is another reason why I wanted to make sure that we had it done right, because I wasn't completely clear about what the wording was either. But my understanding was that we said I think it was at this time was what we said.
Right, at this time,
I
not
understood.
at the end of the school year.
Yeah, I apologize. I thought I understood that at this time to be part of the context for the decision too, but. Yeah. So should we probably ask Sue to reread it and?
Can you please tell me what the motion is?
Right.
I think you did a pretty good job. I think it was just fine tuning the end of
What was your original proposal? Was it the at this time or till the end of the school year?
No, I was not foreseeing ending this at the end of the school year.
Okay.
It's just at this time.
Okay.
So I think, Sue, it was accurate up until that last phrase about being the end of the school year.
At this time, the Confederate flag in any form on school property unless as part of the educational lesson is not appropriate and disruptive to the educational process and not allowed and falls within the discrimination policy.
Yeah.
That is the motion. It has been seconded and discussed again. At this time, we will vote. All those in favor of supporting that motion, please raise your hand. All those opposed? Motion passes.
Can I make a motion that in light of the time, that all non-time items on the agenda, there's some important, the immigration resolution is important. I'm only thinking of the hour, and I apologize.
I think, can I just say, I think that I understand for city timelines, so it's important that we do the first reading on the FMLA.
Okay.
So
Yep.
if we can do that tonight.
And we have to do the warrants, and we have to do the out-of-state field trip, because I believe the date on that, I've lost my electronic version, but, okay.
All right.
I'll stop talking.
All right. Speedy. Next on the agenda, subcommittee reports. Finance subcommittee.
There is no update.
Okay. Policy review committee. Subcommittee.
Yes.
Those policies to review.
We have first readings for two change in policies. The first is regarding the Family and Medical Leave Act. The purpose of changing this policy is simply to align the district's annual calendar to the city's calendar. I think we were on an academic versus a fiscal or something, so we're aligning with the city for efficiency of that. And, so this is the first reading of the proposed policy for the Family and Medical Leave Act. The East Hampton Public Schools shall comply with the mandatory provisions of the Family and Medical Leave Act of 1993. The superintendent shall issue and from time to time amend procedures setting forth the rights and procedures granted by the Act, and shall ensure compliance either personally or by delegation or by some combination of personal oversight and delegation. This is the part that's changing, really. The system will use a 12-month rolling period to align with the policy used by the City of East Hampton.
Motion has been
Second.
made. It's been
Second for
seconded.
the first reading.
All those in favor of accepting the first reading of this policy? Motion passes.
The second policy that we are proposing is to fill a vacuum. This is a policy on chain of command in the event that our chair is unable to attend a meeting. So the proposed policy, this is our first reading. When the school committee chairperson is absent from a meeting or other relevant committee event, the school committee secretary shall carry out the duties of the chairperson. If both the chairperson and the secretary are absent, the most senior member of the committee shall carry out the duties of the chairperson. In the case in which there is no discernibly senior member, the committee members shall select a member to carry out the duties of the chairperson.
Second. I'm sorry, just the no discernibly senior member right now.
Well,
I'm feeling very
yeah.
senior.
Okay, motion has been made, it's been seconded. All those in favor of accepting the reading? Motion passes. Thank you.
If I can just jump in and collapse the immigration resolution update into the subcommittee policy report as well. We don't have any report on that resolution. We have a draft in place and we have some materials, some Massachusetts state law that we'll be referring to and looking at that at our next policy subcommittee meeting, which
Is the 16th?
I have not posted the agenda yet, but if I can confirm that we're all available for 6 p.m., that'll be next Tuesday, the 16th.
Does 6 p.m. work for people rather than 6:30? That was my only question. Was I was just hoping that is that 6:30 is better? I could see Casey's looking at me.
6:30 would be better.
Okay. We can also do it that I'll stack something first and you can
Yeah.
get there in time.
Yeah.
Tuesday?
Tuesday the 16th.
Yeah, you guys do your thing. And
What time?
6 p.m.
Okay.
I'll come in at 6:30.
That's all I have for the policy review subcommittee.
I think there's some confusion on the time.
Wait, what
Are
time is
you
it?
all
6
set
or
with-
6:30?
6:30. It sounds. Oh, no, I'm sorry. Did we say 6 or 6:30?
6 p.m. Does that
6 p.m. will
Casey
work.
said she can only make it at 6:30.
Yeah,
Go with
6:30?
6:30. Let's stick with
6:30.
6:30.
6:30, yeah.
Okay.
More likely to remember it that way.
Okay, collaborative update.
The only collaborative update I have is that the summer calendar is out for course selections.
There's some good ones.
Okay. Marissa, do you have an education policy
In
update?
the interest of time, I'll defer that to our next meeting.
Okay. And you just covered the immigration resolution update.
Right.
Okay.
Okay.
Matters for action. We have warrants and payroll.
Got it. Okay, so I move to approve the school payroll dated 11 May 2017 in the amount of $482,320.55.
Second.
Sorry.
There's been a motion, it's been seconded to approve the school payroll dated May 11, 2017 in the amount of $482,320.55. All those in favor?
Aye.
Motion passes.
Okay. I move to approve the accounts payable authorization for payment dated 11 May 2017 in the amount of $197,829.59.
Second.
Motion has been made, it's been seconded to approve the accounts payable authorization for payment dated May 11, 2017 in the amount of $197,829.59. All those in favor?
Aye.
Motion passes.
Okay, and you will need signatures on these, so, okay. And then when they come back, they can go right here. All right.
Minutes to approve?
Yep, motion to approve the minutes of the April 25th, 2017 school committee meeting.
Second.
It's been a motion made, it's been seconded to approve the minutes from the April 25th, 2017 school committee meeting. All those in favor?
Aye.
Aye. And,
Motion passes.
right, and motion to approve the minutes of the executive committee meeting of May 2nd with the matters not to be released with it not to be released until the matters are resolved.
Second.
Motion to approve the executive committee minutes. As Peter stated.
Sorry. There you go.
It's been seconded.
Yeah.
All those in favor?
Aye.
Motion passes. Thank you.
Thank you.
Can I
And-
jump in? I
Yes.
think I need to ask us to approve the policy subcommittee minutes. Do we need to do that? It's on the agenda, but don't need to do it. Okay, sorry. Okay.
Okay.
Okay. We have an out-of-state field trip
Right,
request.
a motion to approve the out-of-state field trip request for Whitebrook Middle School to Mystic, Connecticut, and the date was the 25th, right? The 25th, sorry, this is, to Mystic Seaport, on the 25th of May.
Second.
Thank you.
There's been a motion, it's been seconded to approve the Whitebrook Middle School field trip to Mystic Seaport on May 25th, 2017. All those in favor?
Aye.
Motion passes.
Okay, motion to adjourn.
Second.
The motion to adjourn has been seconded. All those in favor?
Aye. One more round of signatures here. Tess.